Okay, 2 hours and 30 minutes. That's pretty long, but it's not too bad. Okay. This is Act 1. Alright. The Path of the Luna Wolves by Warrior Tier. I'm gonna try and interject a little bit more in this video. The reason why I haven't interjected near the latter half of at least so much in Bricky's Factions Re-Explained video, well, it was partially because I was eating, and also partially because I just had nothing really left to say, and I would rather interject at points where I have something to say. But you know, granted, I had basically exhausted most of my contributions to the conversation near the earlier half of the React, so I'm hoping to maybe just be a bit more succinct this time and maybe save some points for maybe if they get brought up later or whatever have you, you know? That way I don't feel kind of weird about, you know, like just long stretches of quiet, not too much interjection, you know, kind of taking away from, I mean, I guess some people would say that talking over, you know, like in pausing in between is kind of taken away from the video, but I'd rather not take, you know, like, I'd rather not be disrespectful, basically, of a Warrior Tier, or really any content creator, for that matter. I just would rather be a bit more, you know, I just would rather be a bit more respectable about it. I don't know what else to say about it, other than that. Let's see. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and change the title now, so that way... Alright, I'm going to... There we go. Alright, let's change the title. Finish Doom. Now reacting, I guess, to... Does the title really matter that much, I guess? Now reacting to Horus Rising by Warrior Tier. Horus Rising, Act 1. By Warrior Tier. There we go. Okay. There we are. Ugh. Okay. I need a stretch. Alrighty. That's settled. Let's go ahead and just hop right into it. Alright, once again, Horus Rising, Act 1. The Path of the Luna Wolves by Warrior Tier. Don't forget to, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Just subscribe. I'm going to like. Please support the original video. Without further ado, let's go. I have never actually read the Horus Heresy novels, and I know those things go up well within to 50 volumes, so I'm very interested to see what a more cinematic look of it would be like, because I'm more of a visual person anyways.
This message is for the Emperor. I am Captain Abaddon of the Lunar Wolves First Company. We are coming as peace ambassadors. Our objective is to speak with you, not to attack you.
Emergency. Central control systems damaged. Rerouting power.
War Master, there is no hope of peace here. They've made their intentions perfectly clear.
This is unfortunate. You know what must be done. The death of Sejanus will be avenged. But bring the Emperor to me, alive.
Understood.
So this is mid-heresy, that's right. Who is Sejanus? That's a name I haven't seen before ever mentioned in the lore. I know who Abaddon is. I didn't know his first name was Ezekiel, though. That's interesting. But, man, he looks so different in his human form than he does in his chaos form. Anyways. So this is the start of the heresy, huh? They're currently looking, maybe even beseeching Terra at the current moment. That's what it seems like. But we'll move on from that.
Good Lord.
Thousands of Astartes rushed intently out of their stormbirds, running ahead of the enormous titans that marched towards the palace.
Take the mortars out!
The automated mortars firing upon them were quickly destroyed by a plasma cannon, and the Luna Wolves continued their advance. Loken had not been in a full-scale battle since their victory on Ulanor, so it felt slightly unnatural as he shouted the new war cry for the first time.
For the War Master!
Loken was just outside of the palace entrance now, and he surveyed his surroundings. The Luna Wolves, in their brilliant white armor, were forging ahead through the battle zone.
Minimize myself a little bit.
Saw Captain Abaddon's first company, their black armor antithetical to the rest of their brothers, and Loken thought to himself that Abaddon looked like he was leading his own Black Legion.
Captain Abaddon, 10th Company is making entry.
Loken, are you telling me this simply to gloat?
No, First Captain. I would never.
That was a joke, Loken. I'll see you inside. You beat me to entry, now let's see if you can beat me to this Emperor.
Narrated by Warrior Tier. A. Dimbleman as Garvale Loken. Nathaniel Williams as... These are going by for pretty fast. Let's see. Narrated by Warrior Tier. Aid Nimberlin as Garvale Loken. Nathaniel Williams as Horus Lupercal and Horus Aximan. That's a name. Who's Horus Aximan? Is that like the demon version? Is that like his heresy version? I have no idea. A Vox in the Void as Ezekiel Abaddon. Oh, that's a content creator, I guess. And Johnny Neal. Oh yeah, that's right, a Vox in the Void. What does he do? I don't remember now. Yeah, I don't remember now. I've seen so many different like lore videos done by different people, from Major Kill to Wes Hammer, among other things. So it's... And I've even seen, like, what was the Voice of the Emperor or something like that? I don't even... There's, like, so many. Johnny Neal as Tarek Torgodden? I have no idea how to say that. Markand Steenkamp, I'm probably butchering these names, too, as Nero Vipus. Rob Milton as Kyril Cinderman, Matthew Bedell. There's a lot of people to this. Damn. A false emperor. This is pretty cool. 3D animations by Morgan Jones, sound design by Evolve Audio. Based on the Dan Abnett novel Horus Rising. Ah, so this is based off of a literal novel. and not just the Horus Heresy books. Okay. Chapter 1. Captain Loken's arming chamber.
I'll tell you this story, but if you could please enlighten me. I believe someone told you to ask me about this. Who was it?
That's right. It was Captain Torgadon.
Of course it was.
Is something wrong, Captain Loken?
No. Nothing at all. What is it that you'd like to know?
Well, Captain, if you have the time, I'd like to know everything. I'm a remembrancer, so my duty is to...
I know what your duty is.
As a remembrancer, Mercedy had quickly gotten used to receptions that ranged from less than friendly to outright abrasive. Their commissions weren't all the same. Some were imagists, taking pics to visually document the crusade. Others were poets, seeking to write thought-provoking verses about the expedition. Whether poets, imagists, or documentarians, they all shared one thing in common. They all felt unwelcome on the vengeful spirit. The Remembrancer Order was founded by the Council of Terra, and the thought was that these artists and writers would document the reunification of mankind. Unfortunately, the Remembrancers found that they had their work cut out for them, as no one on the crusade had any interest in cooperating with them.
Where would you like me to start, Mistress?
Start at the beginning, Captain Loken. I know that the Emperor was killed, but why?
To avenge our fallen brother, Master Sejanus.
And true to Mercedes' request, Loken started at the beginning.
Oh.
The Luna Wolves' flagship, the Vengeful Spirit, was caught in a warp storm, forcing them to reroute. After correcting their course, they came upon a system of 9 worlds. Their ships were spotted by a delegate from these worlds, and he wanted to know who they were and what they were doing. This delegate revealed himself to be the Emperor of Mankind. He elaborated further, explaining that once he was shown the proper loyalty and devotion, that he would welcome them with open arms into the Imperium. Horus found the situation to be quite humorous, and sent the calm, collected diplomat, Master Sejanus, to meet with this emperor. In a regrettable twist of fate, however, Sejanus and his warriors were murdered by the Emperor's guard, the Invisibles.
But why did the Emperor kill Sejanus?
For speaking the truth.
Why would he kill him for simply telling the truth?
Because Sejanus explained to him that there was another emperor, the true emperor of mankind, beloved by all. And this false emperor viewed this as a contradiction.
Oh, interesting. So, at the time, they were thinking that the Emperor was a false emperor, and Horus was the true emperor of mankind. He really was setting himself up as like the ruler to the ruler to end all rulers, I guess. So much so that I guess even before officially meeting, he had already became like a ruler of his own planet and called himself the Emperor. It's kind of ironic, really. But anyways, that's probably the point, actually. I mean, when GW has never been one for subtlety.
A contradiction that he was unwilling to accept.
What happened next? Is that when Horus killed him?
Loken glared at Mercedy, visibly uncomfortable with the Remembrancer speaking the Primarch's name without the appropriate title.
No. The War Master believed that the death of Sejanus was a mistake, and that we could resolve things peacefully. He sent another peace embassy to speak with the false emperor, but his orders were clear. If the embassy failed to come to a peaceful resolution, the spear tip would be thrust.
The spear tip?
Yes. The War Master's favorite strategy. The spear tip thrust to tear out the throat.
Loken and 10th Company entered the palace, moving through thick smoke and debris. The distant echoes of gunfire reverberated off the palace walls, and as Loken stepped past a group of enemy corpses, he saw Nero Vipus standing at the end of a long corridor.
There's a problem up ahead. It looked clear. No visuals or heat traces on anything. Then out of nowhere we were under fire.
We? Where are the others?
Zacchaeus is dead. Shimoni and Sergeant TG are injured. The apothecaries are with them now.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused on the setting here. Is this happening? I know this is happening probably likely before the heresy, obviously, but exactly when is this taking place? Is this happening like? Are they attacking the Emperor of Mankind? Is this false Emperor actually the Emperor, or is this like a false Emperor on some random planet who named himself the Emperor? And Horus is just here to basically do what they did in the Crusade, which is just put them in compliance, basically, right? I'm a little light on the details here.
These people are lost, Vipers. Going to war with orcs is something I can handle, but fighting our own kind saddens me.
What saddens me is that I don't even know who or what brought my men down.
Where was the gunfire coming from?
At the end of the junction, from the other side of a bulkhead. We hit it with 3 grenades, but the gunfire didn't slow down at all.
Let's push forward and kill this bastard, whatever it is.
Loken signaled to his men, and they pushed forward towards the junction. The palace floor and walls were heavily damaged.
Oh, wait a minute. Or actually, is Horus actually the false Emperor? No, because they mentioned Horus earlier. Okay, I'm confused now.
From where Loken was taking cover, he could
I'm sure it'll start to make sense and it starts to click later.
He scanned the room with his visor, and just like Vipus had warned, he was unable to detect any threats. Loken reached down and picked up a chunk of tile from the chewed-up palace floor and threw it in front of the bulkhead.
No.
In only a matter of seconds, thousands of rounds were fired into the junction, further damaging the surrounding walls and columns. As the bombardment stopped, Loken heard the sound of an ammunition loading system being engaged.
It's not a person. It's an auto-sentry.
I'll hit it with another grenade. From this angle, I should be able to disable it.
I've got a better idea.
Loken activated a flare and threw it in front of a pillar along the left side of the palace wall. The flare lit up and doused the room in a blinding white light. Within seconds, the auto-sentry was hammering shells into the pillar. While the sentry was unloading into the left side of the room, Loken sprinted to the right, hugging the wall and heading towards the bulkhead. Nestled into a small housing of the wall, Loken saw the auto-sentry still firing towards the flare.
Good, it's a
He
heatsink.
put 2 bolt rounds into the side of the sentry. The weapon ground to a halt and started smoking from the sides.
Clear.
Did you have to make it look so easy, Garvey?
Loken couldn't see Vipus smiling through his helm, but he could hear it in his tone.
Let's keep pushing. It's time for us to meet the Emperor of Mankind.
Are we in a hurry?
You could say that. First Captain Abaddon placed a wager that he'll get to him before me.
First Captain Abaddon placing a wager with you? I wasn't aware you were on such terms with the First Captain.
Consider yourself enlightened, Nero.
Past the bulkhead, there was another corridor that led into another large chamber. As Loken and his 10th Company Astartes carefully walked through the room, he couldn't shake the thought that they were fighting their own kind. This city, and all the poor men and women living on this world, all of it could have been saved. Instead, their ignorance would doom them, and these people would die for nothing. Loken and the rest of his brothers didn't exactly understand why those that murdered Sejanus were called the Invisibles, but as they ventured deeper into the palace, they were soon to learn why.
Nero, I heard something.
Loken quickly scanned the room, but didn't see anything.
I did too, but I'm not getting a visual.
Then, they heard a loud slamming noise behind them, the sound of ceramite power armor hitting the ground. Loken looked back and saw one of his brothers lying on the ground, his helmet and visor appearing to be melted into his face.
Ew.
Before anyone had time to react, they heard the distinct sound of an energy weapon being fired. Another Luna Wolf collapsed.
Oh, interesting. Wait, so is the plasma weapon that whoever's using like some type of silenced plasma weapon? Like, did he wait and charge? No, he must have prepped that beforehand. He must have charged it just enough before they entered a room to where he was in a decent position, got a good vantage point, fired it into one of their faces, and that's what led to that person dying. Okay, that actually makes some sense. But that's interesting. So they have plasma weapons on this world, or they stole it from Sejanus and his company when they went to go and basically negotiate. So whoever this is actually pretty clever.
Collapsed, his armor snapping off at the elbow before he hit the ground. Loken, Vipus, and the remaining men began to fire.
Especially since, prepping a plasma weapon is never usually a good idea, from what I understand. If you hold that thing's charged for long enough, it'll probably just blow up in your hands. And it's not a very subtle explosion, like a firework. No. This is like a fucking bomb going off in your hands.
Fire all around them. One of their shots hit something, as blood exploded out of the air and splattered the ground below. Loken was now detecting slight heat traces of movement, and realized that the enemies became faintly visible as they moved.
It's all 3D.
The contrast on his visor to almost complete black and white, and could now see the outline of the enemies as they advanced on them.
I didn't think it was literal 3D images. That's awesome.
Turning his body and adjusting his aim towards each outline of an invisible. Vipus rushed forward beyond the ambush of invisible warriors, and suddenly felt a numbing sensation in his hand. One of the invisibles had struck him with their energy weapon and landed a direct hit to his right hand. As Vipus fell to his knees in pain, Loken had dashed into the room behind him and started firing on more of the invisibles. The situation had turned to pandemonium. Loken was lost in the noise of gunfire and his brothers in physical struggles with their elusive enemies. As Loken cleared the room, he was the only one remaining. The battle had spilled out of the chamber, and he could hear his brothers fighting off the enemies in the distance. The enemies that were once hidden under the cloak of their mysterious, light-bending technology were now lying dead on the floor in pools of their own blood. Loken walked past the enemy corpses and up a set of marble stairs into a massive spire. It was incredibly tall, and the walls were constructed entirely of glass, allowing Loken to see the battle being waged outside of the palace. It was eerily quiet in the spire.
At least it wasn't stained glass.
With his visor and confirmed that it was empty. He spotted a spiral staircase and detected a heat trace roughly 6 floors up near the top of the stairs.
Nero, where are you?
At the base of the tower. We just fought off more of these invisible bastards.
Well, how bad is your hand?
I got rid of the damn thing. It was slowing me down. We've got more resistance, Garvey.
The Vox link disconnected, and Loken set off to discover the source of the heat trace above him. He ascended the stairs, and at the top, he entered a vast hall. Flush against a grand window overlooking the furious battle below sat a golden throne. He walked towards the empty throne, his bolter at the ready by his side. Just as Loken was going to attempt to make Vox contact with Vipus, he noticed an elderly man in robes standing against the glass. He was staring out of the window at the war below, seemingly oblivious to Loken's presence, until he turned around and stared into his eyes.
I will not bend my knee to you. None of us will.
This battle is over. You were looking out the window just now. You're seeing what I'm seeing. There's nothing left for you to do but surrender.
The Imperium of Man will be victorious.
Yes, we will be victorious.
The man cocked his head to the side ever so slightly, as if he was confused by what Loken had said to him.
Am I speaking to the imposter, Emperor of Mankind?
Imposter? The Emperor is as true as you or I. There is no imposter. You disgust me. Invading our world and murdering our people. And if that wasn't enough, you insult us in our sacred place. I believe that you are the imposter.
I'm sorry you feel that way. I am a man just as you are.
You are not a man. Neither are they.
You know, he's got a point. This is a very interesting conversation. Man, things were so much different back in the day. Holy crap. Fucking just even proclaiming that you're an emperor, or even just saying that you believe in something that's different from the Imperiums is borderline heresy, if not just downright. So it's interesting to see an actual level of diplomacy being exercised here, and that the Space Marine talking to this potential false emperor is actually a lot more level-headed and is pretty chill about this whole thing, all things considered. He's even, like, actually arguing with him to sufficiently enough, which is it's pretty amazing. I mean, and you know, the funniest thing is that Horus is, he was never really the kind of person who actively wanted to use, you know, like, he never wanted to use violence first as a means to solve problems. He's not Angron, but he's certainly, like, different from most of his brothers who did not really have that many qualms about just subjugating a planet outright rather than just, you know, being like, hey, we want to actually negotiate with you. Stop being little bitches and let's just talk about this. Man, what a time. God, I would love to see stories around this particular time period. The 31st century must have been a wild fucking time. I would love to see that. I would like to see more stories around that, whether it's video games or whatnot. That would be a pretty interesting one.
The man pointed out the window at the furious battle zone below.
You are evil monstrosities, the ill-fated results of some terrible experiment. With your giant armor and weapons, do you exist only to kill? A man does not kill his own kind.
Our aggression is only in retaliation to the murder of our own. We came here in peace. We came to help you understand, to help reunite mankind in the name of the Emperor.
Is that how you peacefully approach men? Sending armed giants in colossal suits of armor while their fleet of gunships hover above the world below? You came and disparaged our entire existence. You told us our culture was based upon a bed of lies. It wasn't a peace offering, nor was it the truth. It was blasphemy.
The truth isn't concerned with morals that you or I believe. It is just the truth. It is unfortunate that our values don't align, and that it has led to this violence.
You could have left us alone.
Loken felt a moment of unease, and looked at the man with a look of confusion as he responded.
What?
If our values and ways of life are so different, you could have simply left us alone. We have existed peacefully for centuries, and you could have let us continue doing so. But you didn't. And I ask you why? Why did you have to impose your values on us with military force?
Because the truth
isn't concerned with morals. Isn't that correct? Yet you invade our world and butcher our people to deliver your truth.
This false emperor is spitting some fucking facts right now. He is not sugarcoating it. He is just spitting out just straight fucking baners, one after the other. It's crazy. Even the fucking Space Marine here, who's supposed to be also a lot smarter than most humans, at least that's how they're trained anyways, is kind of like getting a little tongue-tied here. It's pretty amazing.
Which makes you immoral.
Loken paused, realizing that he didn't know what to say.
I'm sorry that we aren't going to see eye to eye. Surrender at once.
So, you are the leader of this army?
I'm the leader of the 10th Company.
I don't know what the 10th Company is, but I feel comfortable assuming that you are not the leader of this army, in which case I will not surrender unless it is to the man in charge of this invasion.
You don't get to decide who you surrender to.
What if I refuse to surrender to you? Will you kill me? Will you take the life of an old, unarmed man? I will surrender, but I ask that I am able to surrender to your commander. Can you at least honor me with that last measure of respect?
As Loken was about to speak, 10 First Company Astartes floated up from the edge of the platform, their jump packs disengaging as they hit the ground.
Congratulations, Captain Loken. You beat us here after all.
Where is First Captain Abaddon?
Bomb of the tower. Finishing up the last of the enemy guard units. Did I interrupt your illumination of the false Emperor?
No. This man wishes to surrender, but he wants to do so to the War Master.
Is this a joke? That's not how this works.
No, we have come to their world and put an end to their culture. I believe we can do so decorously, without behaving as bloodthirsty brutes.
Bloodthirsty brutes? He has the blood of Sejanus on his hands.
He does. But are we no better than him? Should we act just as he did?
Yes. I think that would be the appropriate measure to take.
I don't. I recall the Emperor teaching us to be noble in victory.
Respectfully, Captain Loken, the Emperor is not here.
In case you've forgotten, we've embarked on this crusade in his name. He's with us in spirit, always. If you're saying that is not true, then we are marching headlong towards a grim future.
Ekadon looked at Loken in disbelief.
God, that's a fucking line. It's true, but man. They are heading towards a grim future, because Ekadon is basically echoing a similar sentiment that's going to be exercised a hell of a lot in the 41st century. Jesus. What's interesting is that they're supposed to be the more stoic of the the gene splice fighting force that they are based off of the Thunder Warriors. Damn, am I late? Oh, hey Marcus. Yeah, you're a little late. I ended up beating the game around what was it? About an hour ago. You're a little late, but hey, welcome aboard. I'm currently reacting to the Horus Rising as just a way to kind of like kill time. And also just because I thought it'd be an interesting thing to watch on stream.
But he understood that he was outranked on this matter, and he looked to one of his men.
Send transmission to the Vengeful Spirit.
Loken gazed into the elderly man's pained eyes.
We have sent for the War Master.
So, he's on his way here now.
We will make sure that you are able to surrender to him directly.
But how much longer will I be waiting?
As long as it takes for him to arrive.
Ekadon was unhappy with their decision to call for the War Master, and he had no patience left for any demands from the false Emperor. As they stood waiting for a response from the Vengeful Spirit, an explosion outside on the battlefield illuminated the sky in a bright white flash. As Loken's eyes began adjusting, he saw the faint outline of a person approaching the Golden Throne. Loken raised his bolter and screamed at the elderly man.
Is that him? Is that your Emperor?
No! Let me out of here!
The elderly man lunged towards Loken, his arm outstretched to take his pistol.
Hey, check it out. I killed the Emperor.
That wasn't the Emperor. He's right there.
Loken angrily pointed towards the Golden Throne, but it was too late. Before Loken could let the First Company squad know that they had fallen for a trap, a blast of energy shot out of the throne and knocked all the Astartes to the ground. Glass shattered all around them, and most of the First Company Astartes were knocked over the platform's edge by the force of the blast. Loken tried to stand up, but was overpowered by the energy coming from the throne. The light emitting from the throne was blinding, and the sound was a deafening roar. Loken was certain he was about to die, and then everything suddenly stopped. There was the sound of a single shot being fired, and after a horrific scream, the sound and light from the throne vanished. Loken was able to move again, and he quickly got to his feet, just in time for him to see the War Master standing behind him, bolt pistol at his side. Loken was stunned by the presence of his Primarch and fell to one knee.
War Master.
And Horus smiled as he looked at Loken.
Please, Captain, to your feet. There's no need for ceremony.
I have a question, Captain Loken.
So, who was the Emperor? A Xenos? Was it an alien of some type? Or was it like a psyker? Possessed by a demon? No, because that wouldn't make any sense, because then this society wouldn't have flourished nearly as well as it could. As well as it did before the Imperium showed up. You know, it could have been just a psyker, I suppose. I have no idea. I think they're probably going to explain that in just a second, though.
Go ahead.
Couldn't they have just been left alone?
No.
Why not?
I suggest asking a better question.
Mercedy could sense the irritation in Loken's voice, and decided to take his advice.
What is Horus like?
If you're asking me, then you clearly have never been in his presence.
I haven't yet had the opportunity, but seeing as you are a company captain, I would love to know what your thoughts are on Horus.
My thoughts are that you should refer to him with the proper respect. He is the War Master, the first of all Primarchs, and he was chosen by the Emperor, beloved by all, as his proxy. I am deeply uncomfortable with mortals speaking of him without honoring his title, and it offends me that you would think it is appropriate to do so.
I apologize, Captain Loken. I didn't know.
But you do now. He is War Master Horus, your remembrancer. Remember that.
So Garviel has a lot of respect for Horus. I mean, that makes sense. But it's going to be interesting to see how his opinion might change as it goes on.
So, what do you think?
I think it's bittersweet.
Bittersweet?
I would say so. When I received the news that I had been chosen to join the crusade as a remembrancer, that I would be traveling through the stars with the lunar wolves, it felt like a dream. I couldn't believe it. I was so proud. My mind was racing, thinking of what I would see, who I would meet, and how inspired I would be. And that inspiration would lead to the best work I've ever produced. But now that I'm here, it isn't what I expected at all. I don't know.
Ignace, I was asking what you thought of the wine.
Oh, it's actually quite terrible.
It didn't stop you from drinking half the bottle.
When given the choice of drinking wine or sitting through a luncheon hosted by one of those dreadful iterators, I'll choose the wine every time.
That reminds me of a previous conversation I had with friends of mine last night. After I got home from work, I basically was just sitting here looking at a meme of all things, because I don't usually go scrolling for memes on the internet, but I did end up finding one as I was starting up Opera GX, and I was laughing. I was just like, you know, that's true. And then they were just like, I know, right? He said this content creator is so amazing. You know, like when I was working with him about other things and hearing this and that and this, they just got into a whole conversation. They went on a tangent about something completely unrelated, and I'm just sitting there with my proverbial dick in my hand, just like, I mean, yeah, but I wasn't really talking about whatever you guys were watching, because they were watching a video at a time about a content creator, and I can't remember the actual content creator's name who basically does it, but he basically has an entire channel dedicated to basically looking at and researching controversies the same way that the Discovery Channel likes to document serial killers, essentially. It's basically kind of like Matt McMuscle, when he documents like video game controversies or how certain games got released or whatever, you know, like it was something along those lines. It was basically like an autobiography of sorts. And they were watching a video like that, basically, and I was just sitting here just like, yeah, I wasn't actually referring to that, but I'm not gonna say shit. I'm just gonna pretend like that's exactly what I said, what I meant when I said that. Sorry, that just was kind of funny. That one was still fresh in my mind. Anyways, moving on.
Even if it's a foul sludge disguised as wine.
As Ignace Carcassy and Euphrates Keeler sat in the retiring room above the subdeck, hundreds of remembrancers were gathering for lunch. During the Great Crusade, luncheons for the remembrancers were hosted by different ranks of the fleet, and oftentimes these luncheons were hosted by Imperial educators who were hand-chosen to spread the Imperial truth. These educators were known as iterators, and they accompanied all expeditionary fleets of the Great Crusade. Rumor had it that the selection process to become an iterator was even more rigid and meticulous than that of the Astartes. To become an iterator, one had to possess a combination of natural talents, including the ability to articulate strong political knowledge and great intelligence. There were many amongst the expeditionary fleets that reveled in the opportunity to listen to the iterators speak, but Ignace Carcassy was not one of them.
Who is it this time?
Cinderman.
Ah, Cinderman. I'll pass. Can I pour you another glass?
Might as well.
Ignace filled 2 glasses with the burgundy-tinted wine and sat across from Euphrates.
I will say, the wine tastes a bit better when I'm looking into your eyes.
There's no chance, Ignace.
No chance of what? I was just complimenting your beautiful eyes and your luscious...
You know what? I think I will check out the luncheon downstairs after all.
Okay, I get it. Point taken.
Euphrates was slightly annoyed with Ignace's constant flirting, but she couldn't help but chuckle at his attempt.
In all seriousness, though, what do you think?
I don't find it as offensive as you. I've had worse wines back home.
I'm not talking about the wine, Euphrates. I'm talking about this crusade, the way we've been treated.
I don't think I've had it quite as bad as you. I've been relatively fortunate. I've gotten some really good pics. I was down on the assembly deck earlier today and captured some of my best images since we've been here.
Must be nice. I've requested access at least 12 times now, and I haven't had a single one get approved.
Do they have cameras in this universe? Is that a thing that they have? Or does she just have like a servitor that like takes constant pictures or something? I don't know. I imagine social media is a little different in the year 40,000. I'm sorry, it's more like the lack of social media because there was no social media. Computers are fairly basic in this time period.
I didn't think it was going to be like this. I didn't imagine we would have to work so hard just to get them to cooperate with us.
It will get better, Ignace. We've only been here for 3 months. They're probably not used to having so many people following them around and asking them questions.
I hope you're right. I haven't written anything worth reading since we arrived.
I put in a request for access to travel down to the surface. I really want to capture pics of the war zone. Maybe you should request access too.
If I can't get access to speak with anyone on this ship, I can't imagine I would get access to go to the surface.
As they continued to talk, Mercedes Alton entered the chamber, her eyes red with tears.
Mercedes, is everything all right?
No, I've had a terrible day.
What happened?
I was speaking to one of the captains. He was telling me a story of when he was at war. But then I said something that offended him and his entire demeanor changed. He embarrassed me and made me feel like a fool.
Who was it that you were speaking to?
Captain Loken.
Captain Loken? 10th Company, Captain Loken?
Yes.
This is unbelievable. I've been trying to get time with Captain Loken for months. How is it that everyone is getting access except for me?
Euphrates glared at Ignace, irritated by how oblivious he was to the situation.
I don't think now is the time for this, Ignace.
Oh, it's fine. I don't care. I wasn't even supposed to talk to Captain Loken. I was actually scheduled to speak with Captain Torgadon. But when I went to meet him, he told me that something had come up and he couldn't sit down with me anymore. He told me that Captain Loken will be able to meet with me instead. He has a wonderful tale for you, he told me.
Well, I'm sorry it turned out like that. Was it a good story, at least?
It was a fantastic story. But it wasn't worth how it made me feel.
I'm impressed that you were able to get authorization to speak with him at all. Captain Loken is very well respected. Rumor has it that he's going to be the one to replace Sejanus.
Thank you for sending that remembrancer to me, by the way. That was really lovely of you.
Anytime, Garvey. You know I don't have time to waste with them.
I'm glad you think that I do.
Did you want to babble on about remembrances? Or would you rather discuss the rumor that's been floating around?
I've heard it, but I don't know if it's true. Is it?
Well, that's why I came to see you. I wanted to be the one to tell you. It isn't true.
Loken looked at Torgadon stoically, his face not giving any hint of the disappointment he felt inside.
I'm joking, Garvey. It is true.
Torgadon laughed as Loken struggled to decipher whether he was telling him the truth or playing another joke on him.
It's true, I mean it. Ease up.
I don't know what to say. It's an honor.
You're absolutely right, it's an honor. And you should feel even more honored that I was the one that nominated you.
Torgadon smiled as he lunged at Loken, crashing his blade against his.
Well, thank you. I mean it.
Don't thank me. Thank the first captain. Thank the War Master.
Loken stopped in his tracks, stunned by what he had just heard.
The War Master? What do you mean, thank the War Master?
What do you think it means, Garvey? Abaddon seconded your nomination. You left him impressed when you beat him to the false Emperor. The deciding vote was cast by the War Master himself.
Loken continued staring at Torgadon, still unsure if he believed what he was hearing.
He wants you in the Mournival. He said it was an easy decision for him, that you honor the Legion with your work. He asked me to tell you this myself.
He did?
No, I'm only playing with you.
Loken scowled at him, and Torgadon smiled again, howling with laughter as he swung his axe at Loken.
Yes, of course he did.
All jokes aside, Loken was astonished by what he had just heard. To be asked to join the Mournival was an honor that left Loken at a loss for words. The Mournival was a body within the Legion that had existed since its founding. It was comprised of 4 captains, those that were regarded by their peers as the best of the Legion. And while not an official governing body, the Mournival was always viewed as the Legion's soul, the moral compass, highly respected voices of reason that the War Master could turn to discuss any number of matters with. Following the tragic death of Sejanus, the Mournival was in need of a replacement. Torgadon set his axe down, looking into Loken's eyes.
So, what's your...
I mean, to be fair, from what we've seen of Garvale so far, he's actually pretty cool. I would definitely say that he is worthy of the position. He's certainly the most respectable, the most mindful, and certainly the most understanding, potentially even empathetic, of his Legion so far, at least by the things that I've seen so far in this story. So I think it makes perfect sense. And I think Horus, as well as many of the people of his Legion, would like to have more of a level-headed some more level-headed take on certain scenarios and situations that isn't just, swinging a sword or chopping people's heads off and shooting people to death type of, solutions. people would probably want more, especially if Horus, he probably would want more of a diplomatic and respectable approach. And it also brings into mind, though, that's another interesting factor that, I did mention that I was going to go into the idea about how the Thunder Warriors were essentially like, they were blunt force instruments that the Space Marines were meant to be kind of antithetical towards. And while they are certainly warriors that in some instances do surpass the Thunder Warriors, though apparently it has been debated if, like, a Space Marine does stack up with a Thunder Warrior, because apparently they have the better strength augmentation than the Space Marines do, but that's the debate. I think that, as far as, like, the nobility is concerned, it's interesting that a lot of the Primarchs are equally as noble, but so are a lot of the Space Marines, and they tend to value nobility among all others. And in particular with Horus, he seemed like the more noble of all the Primarchs. And, second only to Sanguinius, only because Sanguinius is just liked by everyone. That motherfucker is just universally liked by everyone. Like, I don't think there was a single person who genuinely hated Sanguinius. I think even Angron at one point kind of like had to kind of relented a little bit with his anger just ever so slightly after it got a talking to by Sanguinius, but I do not know if that's true. I just remember hearing that one in passing as one of the things that Sanguinius managed to do during his time alive. And then he also got simultaneously bodied by Angron at one point in his story, but that's a different story for another time. But that's what I've heard for the most part. I would love to get into a lot of the supplementary materials around this franchise, but I just do not have the money. I really do not. I would love to. I just don't. Nor do I have the time. God, that's a luxury I do not have anymore. God, I miss having time for things. Anyways, moving on.
Your answer, Garvey. Do you accept?
Sir, I do. And it is an incredible honor.
Good. Now here's your first lesson. You no longer call me Sir. You call me Tarek.
On this crusade, we have spoken the truth. We will continue to speak the truth. But some might ask, is it the truth just because you say so?
Kyril Cinderman's voice bellowed out into the crowd of nearly 2,000 men and women, a full class of iterators. They were dressed in simple robes, transfixed by Cinderman's every word. Woken walked quietly into the School of Iterators lecture hall and took a seat in the back.
No, I am right, and therefore you are wrong is a weak foundation. Our society as we know it has been formed by magnificent actions. The Emperor's unification of Terra being one of them. The Great Crusade, the journey that we are all on, is another. But the greatest action that we have taken has been freeing ourselves from the prison known as religion. Religion was our greatest enemy. To think of the number of men and women that died because of mankind's attachment to religion.
Boy, do I have something to tell you. Oh, man. That is the funniest thing of all. Is literally just the fact that they tried so hard to get away from religion, to get away from dogma, and they ended up going right back into it. Just straight up, just all the way, just head first, just full on, just dove into it. Like it's nobody's business. And we all have the word bearers, and in particular, Erebus, to thank for that one. Fucking Erebus. Crazy son of a bitch. Anyways. God.
What a tragedy. How many wars were fought in the name of religion? How many people did religion drive to madness? Since the beginning of mankind, we have sought the truth. answers to our questions, a desire to understand the cosmos. But what of those that didn't understand? Religion was a convenient answer. It was comforting. It helped them sleep at night. It was the easy solution.
The audience quietly laughed to themselves as Cinderman continued his lecture.
Blind faith. What happens when I die? The afterlife, of course. Why does the sun light up the sky? Why else but because of the glorious sun god? Mankind didn't understand, but wanted to believe in something. But we understand now. We have traveled the cosmos. We have seen the stars. We have learned, comprehended reality. Spirits, demons, gods, they don't exist. Faith in their existence comforts the ignorant soul, but we have reinvented ourselves. We are stronger now than we ever have been, and it is because we know the truth, and we don't need to be comforted by lies. The truth is we are right. They are wrong. This is not because we say so, but because we know so. And as we continue to proclaim the truth, you must know that we are not proclaiming our truth. We are proclaiming the truth. You are dismissed.
As the
Yeah, it's an interesting point to take. They don't, at this point in the timeline, they don't know the existence of demons quite yet, because the Emperor has neglected to mention anything around that fact. But as far as everything else he said, as much as religion is often seen as a bit of a poor sore spot for a lot of people, especially people who have been on the other side of Jehovah's Witnesses, among other things, people don't exactly have the best opinion of religion. And while I'm inclined to agree with them that, yeah, there are some things that simply just blind faith isn't something I want to just, leave to chance, or just kind of I don't want to just resort everything to just it must be because of the work of something that I just cannot possibly understand type of thing. Wanting to understand how that something works is understandable. It's a feeling that we all understand. It's a feeling that we all get. And it's something that I'm pretty sure we would all like to come to figure out at some point. But there is a thing to be said that there's no point in understanding if there's no reason to understand it. If there's no reason for existing, no reason for being, then what's the point of actually living, right? I mean, we could just live to procreate until the end of time, and it still wouldn't solve the major crux of the issue of, what does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be human? What's the point of our existence? There's still a lot of unanswerable questions, and I don't think anything short of basically just believing that something else exists that's beyond our understanding that might be a determining factor for how life is run and how we should all potentially live our own lives is not an argument that should be dismissed wholly. But I think that there is certainly an ideal here, right? We all don't want to go and engage in feckless wars, fighting battles, and dying for causes we don't even believe in, among other stupid shit. We certainly don't want to get drenched in the trivialities of some of the stupid things that people can get up to. We want to be more progressive than that. That's the one thing that we've noticed as the ages have turned, and especially in the digital age. We want to expand our horizons, further deepen our understanding of not just ourselves, but of the universe and the way we can actually approach communication, as well as a universal understanding of how life and all things tend to exist. And I think it's one of the main reasons why we are in such a fucking annoying position, where we get a bunch of people who try to essentially, confuse everything by trying to experiment with things, trying to figure out exactly just how special can we be, just how different can we possibly become, with the ideas such as, like, there are not just two genders, there are multiple genders, or, you know, like, I don't like this type of thing, but I like that type of thing, you know, like, from preferences to sexualities to a bunch of other things. We're further broadening, and God help us, we're constantly trying to push the envelope and boundaries of what is considered not just acceptable, but what is considered nuanced. And we call it groundbreaking as a result, but that's not really the truth, is it? You know, we have to understand these things first. We can't just call it something because we say it is, right? It's no different than religion when you think about it. I mean, if we were to sit here and just start announcing that everything we say and do is just the will of either ourselves or something else, then it's not really true if it doesn't hold up to scrutiny. If we could perceive it as such, then it might be, but it's not how we will understand it. Because understanding something is very different, especially when we're trying to dissect it and really take a look at the sum of its parts. We're trying to understand how it functions. But I'm starting to digress a little bit. I think the overall argument that religion is bad is not necessarily an argument that is not at least sympathetic, but I think that to really understand the truth behind why religion is such a nice comfort zone for some people is because some people need just a little bit more than what science and answers can provide. People need to believe in something. People want to have faith in something, that there is a meaning to our existences. And it's mainly due to the fact, right, because, you know, as creatures that are socially built to be communicative, we need that communication, but we also are built off of hierarchies. We have a structure to our neurological ways of thinking. We need to believe that what we're doing matters. And so when your way of thought is elevated and you're trying to make sense of everything that you're doing, it only makes sense that you would start to develop a higher sense of how things are working and or should be working, right? And so we go from just being like, hey, we have these nice, funny tools that we can now use to do menial tasks that much more efficiently. You know, like, now we just need to show everybody else how to do it, and then we go from that to then developing small communities, and then we start developing structures based off of leadership and also competency and merit, and then we go from that to just being like, well, then but what goes beyond this? Like, we know the world based off of what we see, but what is the point of everything that we're doing? Because once we reach that question, that's when things get complicated, right? Because there is no higher being, there is no greater answer that is easily discernible, so we have to make one for ourselves. And oftentimes, you know, like, even if we recognize the fact that not everything needs to have an answer and that not everything needs to exist because of something omnipotent or unforeseeable force is the one controlling our actions behind the scenes, you know, like, the important factor, right, for some people, it's just knowing that I have the freedom and the ability to do things, and that gives me the power and strength to do the things that I need to do in order to succeed, and for me to be as functional as a human being as humanly possible. Whereas some people need to have that reason, you know, like, they need to have a higher purpose, and if they believe that believing in a deity or something that gives them that higher purpose is the foundation that'll help them push forward through all of life's trials and tribulations, then honestly, who are we to dispute these claims or facts? 40K gives us a really grim idea of what that looks like, but I think that as far as, like, religion is concerned, as long as it's not bothering people as well, it's totally valid. I know one person who's a good friend of mine who's got a bit of that faith bone in him. And I'm not going to dispute his claims because that just would be rude. That just would just be taking away the one thing that gives him the ability to wake up and do the things that he needs to do every morning. I mean, I would not want someone to come into my life and basically try to upend everything that I've ever thought I knew or believed in, or just basically just make me feel like shit as a result. I'm not going to do that. So even if I disagree with him, even if I disagreed with the very foundations of why he does the things that he does and what he is and how he does them, I'm not gonna dispute it. I'm just gonna accept it and just move on. And that's the thing that we should all be exercising, by the way, as people and as human beings, as functioning members of society. We should all establish that, yes, we have boundaries and we should respect each other's boundaries, even when they clearly and very grossly and obviously overstep them. We should be a little more courteous and just be like, hey, take a step back a bit, my guy. Maybe you're right, but that doesn't necessarily mean you need to say it in the most obtuse way possible. You know, because the internet is full of people who just like to do the actuallys and like to just completely tell you that you're wrong, even when it's not exactly appropriate to do so. I think that if we all just kind of respect each other's boundaries a little bit more, and the internet would not be as much of a fucking terrible place as it is. But it is. And so until we eventually come to learn and understand this particular crucial fact that's going to help us kind of move on from all of the petty squabbles of the internet and the digital age, we're not really going to get very far. Not really going to get very far with the internet as a platform. But that's just my opinion. Anyways, I'm going to move on.
Iterators filed out of the hall, still buzzing.
I have rambled on enough.
Cinderman saw Loken and walked over to him.
To what do I owe the pleasure of being graced by the Honorable Captain Loken?
You know, I've always enjoyed listening to your lectures.
I do, but I suspect that isn't the only reason you're here.
It isn't. I came because I wanted to speak to you, but not in a formal setting.
You want to speak to me about the Mournival?
Loken stared at Cinderman in disbelief.
How did you know that?
I may spend a lot of time reading and speaking to crowds, but I still manage to hear the whispers throughout this ship.
Loken smiled, though he was still unsure of what to say.
Are you surprised?
I am.
I don't see why you would be. With the terrible death of Sejanus, the Mournival has been in dire need of a replacement. You've had the War Master's attention for some time now. Primarch Dorn's as well.
Primarch Dorn?
Even Dorn?
Again, I don't see why this surprises you. To impress these great Primarchs the way you have is an incredible honor, and you are deserving of it. So what is it, Garvey?
What do you think I should accept? Am I the right fit to join?
I believe you know my answer.
Well, there is something else I wanted to discuss with you.
Tell me, Garvey.
I spoke with a remembrancer earlier today, a young woman. She was asking me about the battle at the High City. She wanted to know about the false Emperor and the invasion. She asked me a question, one that I haven't been able to stop thinking about.
I'm intrigued.
She asked me, couldn't they have just been left alone?
Of course not.
I told her as much. But it's not just the remembrancer. When I was talking to this so-called Emperor, he asked me the same thing. Why couldn't we have just let them be? Let them live on their own? It's made me think fighting Xenos on Ulanor was not something that I had to wrestle with, morally speaking, but killing our own kind. It didn't feel right. Still doesn't feel right. The galaxy is vast. If we had ignored them and left them to believe whatever it was they wanted to believe, would that have been such a terrible thing?
Imagine you are in a desert. Some ghastly place where the sun is beating down and the heat is unbearable and dangerous. You see a man sitting down, delirious from dehydration, his skin bright red. Do you bring him to shelter and give him water? Or do you let him continue doing what he's doing, leaving him to die of heat stroke?
I would save him, of course.
And what if he begged you to stop? What if he thought you were trying to kill him? What if he said to you, "Why can't you just leave me alone?"
I couldn't.
What I most appreciate about you, Gabriel, is that you think. You are concerned by things that don't bother others. You are skeptical. You have doubts. It's these qualities that make you a necessity for the Mournival.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
That's a very interesting thing that he has to say about that. His analogy is a little bit flawed, but I get what he's trying to say here. Though I'm starting to quickly see that it's not necessarily that the Mournival is open in terms of thought as they claim it to be. It's more like open to skepticism and, and basically questioning certain things. But it's not necessary, but it's less about the questions themselves and more so about taking things apart, dissecting them just to replace it with something else. And I feel like another problem with it is that it's clearly only open to its own ideas. And with that being said, I feel like the issue here isn't necessarily that they're open to skepticism as much as they are open to the right kind of skepticism. I'm trying to think of a good word for this. But they're basically they got all of the mindfulness qualities just without the open interpretation or thought. Which if that is indeed the way I wanted to look at that it should be looked at. That's pretty much what I'm trying to get at. But I'm not too sure if I succinctly put it that in that correct kind of way. But anyways, yeah, my overall point is that they are open to skepticism, but they're not open to the idea of thinking inwards or introspectively or even criticizing their own ways of thinking as much as everybody else's. It's very much a one-sided thing. They are open to thoughts, but to a certain degree, but they are not nearly as mindful as they should be. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Cinnamon.
The Mournival should serve as a healthy counsel for the War Master. That means opposing viewpoints, different sets of eyes, unique thought processes. The Mournival should watch over the moral health of the Legion, your humanity and ability to empathize. That is the counterbalance that the War Master needs. You came here to ask me what you should do, and I believe you know what that is.
No, chapter 3. We're not even that far into it, are we? No.
For the first time in her life, Mercedes Allaton was standing on the surface of another world. This world, she was told, was called 6319, the 19th world that the 63rd expedition had brought to compliance. Mercedes took in her surroundings with an equal measure of awe and weariness. It was beautiful. Everything looked and felt just slightly different than it did on her home world. Ships passed overhead, and the stars shone bright in the evening sky. Mercedes was thrilled to be on the surface of 6319, but she couldn't ignore the plumes of smoke in the distance, or the quiet grumblings that the world was not yet fully compliant due to the ongoing struggles with the local population. Most of all, Mercedes was surprised, not necessarily that she was on the surface, but because of who had granted her access, Captain Loken. It didn't make sense. The last time they had spoken, the conversation ended with Loken taking great offense, and Mercedes feeling humiliated. She didn't have much time to think about it, as she was now being summoned to speak with him. Mercedes walked over to the massive captain, looking up at him as he spoke to her.
It is nice to see you again.
Captain Loken, I've been wanting to tell you, I'm so sorry for how I spoke to you. I did not mean to offend you, and I felt horrible for doing so.
Please, Remembrancer, do not apologize to me. Do you think that I brought you here to the surface because I was offended?
Captain, to be truthful, I'm not sure why you brought me here.
You got under my skin, but I was out of line. You meant no harm, and I regret the way that I spoke to you.
I was too bold. I should have been more restrained.
I'm glad that you spoke the way you did. I wasn't happy with you in the moment, but your boldness, that's the reason you're here right now.
I apologize, Captain, but I don't understand.
I don't expect you to. I must go now, but I wanted to thank you. You asked me questions. Uncomfortable, but important questions. The right questions. And because of that, you showed me that I was also asking the right questions.
Where are you going?
When we meet again, we can speak of it.
What a fascinating exchange. Literally just summon her straight to the surface of a planet just to tell her all that. My god. That was an interesting conversation. That wasn't even really so much of a conversation, it's just like a bit of like a thank you and sorry. It's both a mixture of apology and acknowledgement. That's a really interesting exchange. And it had no reason to exist in the way that it did. It's a very weird and interesting conversation, to be sure. But you know what? I like it. I dig it.
Loken walked through the ornamental garden, noticing how much quieter it was here. Away from the lander ships and bustling humans on the surface, the garden was peaceful. It had taken its fair share of damage from the assault on the high city, but its lush, tranquil qualities still remained. Decorative slabs were shattered, and there were craters in the ground from artillery blasts. But the surrounding trees stood in defiance to the remnants of war, as did the vibrant flowers and natural springs. After a few moments of walking, Loken came upon a small pool. Stones stuck out of the water, creating a walkway to cross to the other side. Loken walked across the stones, his mind racing as he stepped. So much had changed, and he knew that things were about to change even more. As he reached the other side of the pool, he saw a small light emitting from the trees in the distance. He walked closer to them. Then a voice began to speak.
What is your name?
My name is Garviel Loken.
Which master do you swear to?
I swear to the Emperor. I swear to the War Master.
Illuminate him.
A metal slot was pulled open, and Loken was bathed in the yellow light of a lantern. On the other side of the trees, Loken could now see three figures. Torgadon was holding the lantern. First Captain Abaddon and Horus Aximand, captain of the 5th Company, stood on either side of him.
Do you vouch for this soul?
I vouch for him.
Loken stood uncomfortably in front of them, not entirely sure of what he should be doing.
Relax, Garvey.
Loken smiled, but still felt slightly unsettled. As he looked at the three captains standing before him, something dawned on him. Within the Lunar Wolves Legion, there were a handful of Astartes who bore a striking resemblance to the War Master. It was theorized that this resemblance was due to conformities in the gene seed. Whatever the cause, those who shared the physical appearances of Horus were considered remarkably fortunate and were known as the Sons of Horus. Abaddon and Torgadon shared physical traits of the War Master, and Horus Aximand's physical likeness was so similar to that of his Primarch that he had earned the nickname of Little Horus. In that moment, Loken realized that he would be the only Mournival member, past or present, that was not amongst the Sons of Horus.
There is nothing complicated about this. Tarek vouched for you here, and others of great honor have also done so. Our War Master and Primarch, Dawn, have both put your name forward.
I understand you have as well, First Captain.
I have. You have had my attention for years, and you validated my belief by reaching the false Emperor before me.
Nothing more than luck, sir.
Luck. There is no such thing. There is success or failure, but there is no such thing as luck.
Calm yourself, Horus. Garville is just being modest. He is too humble to throw it in my face that he beat me. And for that, Garville, I admire you. But you are not here today because of your modesty or because of luck. You are here because you are an exceptionally talented warrior.
Thank you, First Captain.
Now,
He's also exceptionally noble, but that's just my 2 cents of it.
To explain the Mournival, we are equals, all of us. There are no ranks, nor will there ever be. If we are in front of our legion, you may call me Sir, First Captain, or whatever you are comfortable with. But when we are amongst each other, I am Ezekiel.
Tarek.
Horus.
Understood, Ezekiel.
There is no structure, nor will there be any duties expected of you. You should prepare yourself for one thing in particular, to spend more time working with the War Master.
I look forward to it.
Have you decided who will take your place as 10th Company Captain?
If I were a betting man, I would presume it to be Vipus.
Vipus feels right for it, but Jubal outranks him. He has seniority over him too.
Another lesson of the Mournival. Never second-guess yourself. You said it feels right for Vipus. Then he should be your replacement. Jubal will get over it.
It's time for you to take the oath, Garville.
The 3 captains led the way and walked back towards the pool. They all stepped into the dark water, forming a ring.
All those before you that have taken the oath have done so under the moon. It's a tradition. You will do the same.
It's interesting, the mindset of the Lunar Wolves. They don't seem particularly strong of mind in any particular way. They seem more so almost, how do I put it? They're almost complementary. They're very much like, they're a band of brothers. Very much duty-bound knights. Exactly as a Space Marine should be in this type of setting. So, it's very interesting and fascinating to see how all of this is going to play out. Knowing how this is all going to play out ahead of time. It's actually building up anticipation for it, because then you're kind of curious and you're left wanting to know, well, how did it happen? Because the best type of stories show you like a complete inverse to what is going to be presented to you later, right? Or what was presented to you earlier in different aspects of a particular franchise or medium. You know, seeing how something starts out and having experience with it at its latter half is interesting. But seeing how things start is always a fascinating one, because you get to see like sometimes a reflection, but also sometimes like a sort of like an interesting case study of how things can go so wrong, or how things can take a tragic turn very quickly. The Blood Angels are a great example of the tragic turn, but it seems like Horus's Legion is very much like not so much tragic as it is just like, how is everything going to spiral out of control until things get more fucked up than it already is? Right? And mind you, we haven't even gotten up to the fucked up parts of this Legion. Like, we don't know if there's anything truly wrong, or if there's anything that's really holding this Legion back from, like, being successful or even being great. Right? The only thing that's holding back Horus's Luna Wolves is literally the Luna Wolves themselves so far. The only thing we haven't seen is their weakness, their faultiness. We have yet to see where the fault lies with this Legion, and in particular with Horus, because Horus is the one who basically, you know, like turned his entire Legion to chaos, and so it's going to be interesting to see how every Space Marine is going to kind of rationalize this change, not just with Horus, but also amongst themselves. Like, where do their allegiances truly lie? Is it with Horus, or is it with the Emperor, who is basically the big E, the dad of Horus. Like, do they follow Horus or do they follow their gene father? I mean, do they follow their gene father or do they follow the Emperor, basically? It's going to be an interesting one to really dissect.
Loken looked up and admired the moon shining brightly above them.
In the early days, it was preferred to have an image of the moon reflected on a mirror. Tonight, this water will do the trick.
As Loken looked down at the moon's reflection in the pool, he felt uneasy once again. Not because the nerves of joining the Mournival, but because the oath ceremony that he was participating in felt too close to a forbidden ritual. Cinderman had warned against these types of spiritual ceremonies, and Loken decided to speak up.
My faith is in the Imperium. I cannot and will not acknowledge your pledge to any spirit.
The three captains looked at each other smiling, then began laughing.
Garville, there are no spirits here, that much I can assure you. This is how we've always done it. Think of it as pantomime.
This was an important moment for us all. It was life-changing. We want you to experience it the same way. It's important to us that we carry on tradition. It may seem theatrical, but we want you to remember the moment.
I understand.
And you're sure of this? The oath you're about to take is one of brotherhood. It may seem dramatized, but it's significant and secular. Only in death does our duty end.
I want to take the oath, Ezekiel.
And under the moon, he stood with his brothers as the ceremony began. Torgadin spoke the names of the Mournival members who perished before them, honoring their service to the Legion. Loken swore to accept their brotherhood, to serve the Luna Wolves, and to stand firm against all enemies. As he finished pledging his oath to the Mournival, Torgadin fired a vapor flare into the night sky. The four Astartes laughing and cheering as sparks rained down on them. They each took turns hugging Loken, congratulating him in their embrace. Torgadin went last and spoke quietly to Loken as they embraced.
I'm so proud of you, brother. You're one of us now.
Chapter 4. High City Center Square, 6319. Okay.
This will once again be a city of light, and the darkness, darkness of the past is no more. It is now.
Ignace Carcassy knew it was too good to be true. At the urging of Euphrates Keeler, he requested access to come to the surface, and to his utter shock and surprise, his request was granted. But after listening to Peter Egon Momus stumble over his words into a barely functional Vox mic for over an hour, he regretted ever making the request.
Why, for the love of terror, am I being punished like this?
Hey, at least we got to come to the surface.
Who cares about being on the surface if we are to be subjected to this? What a nightmare.
Ignace was in a crowd of over 500 others. In theory, the crowd should have been captivated by the architectural vision Momus was sharing for the future of the High City. But the reality of the situation was much different. The sun was high overhead, and the open city square offered no shade to the crowd below. It was hot, uncomfortably, brutally hot. The very few times that a breeze blew through offered nothing in the way of relief, instead kicking up dirt and prompting those standing in the crowd to cough and choke. And ignoring the poor weather conditions, the members of the crowd who received an invitation to this event had no interest in being there. Outside of a small group of remembrancers, the majority of those in attendance were nobles and high-ranking members of the recently overthrown government. The only reason that these people were alive was because they had pledged compliance to the Imperium.
I can't listen to this bumbling fool any longer, Charles. I have to get out of here.
You're being dramatic, Ignace. I'm quite enjoying it, actually.
Oh, you're quite enjoying this, are you? I can barely hear a damned word he's saying.
We are excited to share our architectural vision Now, allow me to... Okay, sorry, one moment. I've misplaced my notes. I just want to... here they are. Okay. If you recall the earlier data...
Okay, it isn't great, but it's better than being cooped up on that ship.
I couldn't disagree more. I'm seeing myself out.
Where are you going?
I don't know. I suppose I'll walk until I can't hear him talking anymore.
And with that, Ignace turned around and began pushing his way through the packed, sweaty crowd. He trudged through the dense group of exhausted, grim-faced people for 10 minutes before he finally reached the end. As he was nearing the exit, he was approached by an Imperial Army soldier.
Sir, I'm going to need you to turn around and head back that way.
Oh, that's quite all right. I've actually just finished my work here.
Your work?
Yes, sir. I am an official remembrancer.
No one is to leave until the presentation is over.
I'm sorry, but I'm sweating through my robes here and I need something to drink.
Food and drinks will be provided.
Ignace felt defeated and couldn't hold back any longer.
No. Listen to me, sir. Please. My life is at risk in this crowd. I don't know if it will be the heat or sheer boredom, but I am certain I will die if I am forced to listen to this any longer.
You know, Ignace is an interesting character because he definitely represents the average Joe mentality of these types of things, because I'm pretty sure we've all been there a few times where we were basically forced to sit in an auditorium and have to listen to someone lecture us or regale us with useless information we don't really care about, nor do we necessarily need. I have been there one too many uncomfortable times, and I get tired of this shit pretty easily. The only benefit to any of it is not having to do shit you don't want to do instead, right? And I cannot tell you how fortunate it is that I've had to skip certain classes just so that way I could listen to someone talk ad nauseum, and it's utterly saved me from just wanting to just sneak out of an auditorium entirely. God. I hated school sometimes. Actually, that's not true. I hated school all of the time, but that's besides the point.
Can you even hear what he's saying? How am I supposed to memorialize this if I can't even see or hear anything?
The soldier looked Ignace up and down. He glanced over his shoulder, then looked back at Ignace and quietly spoke to him.
Listen, I get it, but I can't let you leave. Let me tell you something. You don't want to be walking around out there. It's not safe.
Not safe? I've been made to believe this world is nearly compliant.
Kid, you've been made to believe a lie. These poor saps lost everything they had. There are insurgents who aren't ready to lay down and pledge compliance. They see someone like you walking around in your clean, fancy robes. Just trust me. You're better off staying here.
Thanks, I guess.
Ignace walked towards the back of the crowd. His head hung low. Peter Momus fumbled through his barely audible speech for another 10 minutes, when all of a sudden, Ignace heard part of the crowd gasp. The heat had begun to take its toll, and one of the audience members collapsed. A woman screamed out for help, and 2 Imperial soldiers rushed into the crowd to help. Ignace couldn't help but notice that the soldier he had just been talking to was one of them, and realized that this was his chance to escape. With his face obscured by his robes, he quickly walked towards the exit and made his way out of the city square.
Inner High City.
The city streets were eerily empty. Buildings were crumbling and vehicles were burned out on the sides of the desolate roadways. The sight would unnerve most people, but Ignace felt relieved. The calm of the quiet, ravaged city comforted him. It was the first time in months that he had been truly alone. As he ventured deeper into what remained of the bleak city, he came across handwritten messages on walls. Graffiti, words of defiance. Some were heartfelt, emotional messages lamenting the losses of loved ones. Others were fiery, angry messages demanding that the invaders leave. Ignace was engrossed by the messages and began scribbling down poetry drafts. The vision that he had had arriving on the crusade and being overwhelmed with inspiration to write had never materialized while in orbit. But it was happening here, in the ruins of the High City. Carcassy wrote for hours, wandering down alleyways and silent streets, writing page after page as he came across more graffiti.
What is
that? The sun
that?
had started to go down, and the exciting liberation he had felt hours before had turned to unease. At the end of the street, he eyed a...
Okay, what is that? I'm not the only one hearing that buzzing noise, right? I might be, but it's like... It is in my ear, and I hate it. What is that? Every time he talks, it's just... Bzz, bzz, bzz. God. I'm gonna let it go for now. Hopefully, maybe it'll just fix itself. But... Ugh.
Dining hall that appeared to be open.
Ugh.
The lights were on, and through the window he observed a small handful of people sitting at tables, eating and drinking. He walked inside and immediately felt the weight of every eye in the establishment being turned in his direction. A woman behind the bar looked dubiously at Ignace.
Good evening, miss.
She stared back at him in complete silence, offering no response.
Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
The woman nodded, still not saying a word.
That's fantastic. I would love a drink if you could be so kind.
As she stared at him blankly, Ignace wasn't convinced that the woman understood him.
Drink. You know, that right there?
He pointed to the bottles of what appeared to be liquor behind the counter. The woman grabbed one of them and placed it on the bar, along with a small glass.
This is excellent, thank you. And how much do I owe you? Should I pay now? You don't know what I'm saying, do you? Do you even care? I don't think you want to talk to me. I take no offense. I'll tell you what. I'm going to take this bottle, have a seat over there in the corner, and leave you be.
Ignace poured a glass of the mysterious liquor and quickly drank it. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of Imperial coins, placing 3 of them on the bar in front of the woman.
This is for the bottle. Is this enough? Ah, I see. Here, take them all.
Ignace placed all of the coins in front of the woman. She looked down at the coins, then back up at Ignace, before she walked away without saying a word. Unbothered by the woman's behavior, Ignace grabbed the bottle and sat at a high-top table in the corner of the room. A table of men sitting nearby glared at him as he sat down.
You're welcome to join me. I'd love to hear more about this beautiful city.
Unsurprisingly, the men ignored Ignace, and he smiled to himself as he poured another glass. And another. He sat alone at his corner table, drinking glass after glass of liquor and looking through his notebook at the words he had scribbled down. He thought of the messages he saw written on the city walls.
Why is there a buzz? I hate it.
Did these people see it coming? Could they have ever imagined that their city would be reduced to what it is now? Ignace had nearly finished the entire bottle of liquor by now, and as he pondered the thoughts of the defiant citizens, he saw a bright flash of light outside the window. Imperial soldiers had lit up one of the walls with a massive illuminator and began removing the graffiti on the wall with a flamer. Ignace stumbled out of the chair at his table and rushed outside. He hadn't realized it because he had been sitting down for so long, but he was quite drunk at this point and was having a hard time walking straight.
Hey! Hey! Leave that there!
The Imperial soldier deactivated the flamer and yelled across the street to Ignace.
What are you saying?
Leave that there! You don't need to remove it, all right? Move along now.
I'm following orders. And who are you?
Don't you worry about me. You go carry on now without destroying people's words. Enjoy your evening, sir.
Ignace turned around and drunkenly bumbled his way back inside the dining hall, crashing into a wall as he returned to his table where he'd been sitting by the window. He opened his notebook again, but his vision was blurry and he was having difficulties reading his own writing. Then, he noticed 3 men in Imperial uniforms standing around his table.
Excuse me, sir. I'm going to need you to identify yourself.
Ah, of course. I'm Ignace Carcassy. I'm a remembrancer, you see.
A remembrancer? You shouldn't be here.
Oh, but I should. I was here to listen to Patrick, Numi, or Gregory. No, that's, Peter Momus, the, architect.
That presentation ended hours ago, and the remembrancers were escorted back onto the ship.
Right. Yes. Yes, they were, but I was asked to stay here and, further document the plans of the city, that is.
Okay.
He is too drunk to be doing this. And to be fair, he'd be lucky if he got off without them just straight up leaving him here to fend for himself on this godforsaken hellhole of a planet. But, you know, who's to say that they probably just won't hoist his drunken ass back to their own barracks and then hoist him back onto the ship where he should be?
I wasn't aware that any of the remembrancers had stayed on the surface. But if you're working with Peter Egon Momus, then...
The soldier looked over at the other standing beside him and shrugged.
Be careful down here. It's not entirely safe. Not yet, anyway. It'll be a paradise city once it's rebuilt. I've heard Momus drew up outstanding plans for the new city.
Oh, outstanding indeed, sir. A memorial that to commemorate our victory here. One that will last forever, of course, just like the city before it.
I'm sorry?
I'm sure you are sorry. This city won't last, whether you or Momus or the Emperor himself rebuilds it. The city will stand until it is toppled by whoever comes to invade it next.
I think it's time for you to leave.
What do you think the person who built the last city thought? You know, the city that was here before we came and left it in ruins. I bet he thought it would stand forever.
Sir, I'm going to need you to come with me.
This city, this world, it will all crumble.
I've heard enough of this.
And after that, the Imperium. It will all fall apart. We'll be fighting forever. Oh, what, you don't believe me? Look at what...
Before Ignace could finish saying another word, he was knocked to the ground with a wild punch from the Imperial soldier. He tried to get up, but the three soldiers pummeled him, punching and kicking him as he lay powerless on the ground. They were overcome with rage, but as the soldier who had been speaking with Ignace stepped back and took a look at him, he came to a startling realization. Ignace was no longer breathing.
Okay.
Are you ready, Garvey?
I am.
Listen. At some point, a question will be posed. To most in attendance, it will seem insignificant. It will not appear to be directed towards you, but you need to be prepared for it.
Torgadon's warning was vague, but Loken appreciated it nonetheless. The two continued down the corridor, eventually reaching the entrance to the Strategium. Abaddon and Axaman were waiting for them outside.
Garville, are you ready?
I am, Ezekiel.
Good. Let's not keep the War Master waiting.
Oh, they're gonna go meet Horus.
Massive golden doors open. A historic moment in Loken's life had arrived. For the first time, he had walked onto the Strategium deck as a member of the Mournival. The Strategium was an ornate, semicircular platform that stood above rows of tiered seats in the Vengeful Spirits Bridge. Loken had only been on the bridge of the flagship 2 other times during his decades of service. The first time was when he was promoted to captain, and the second time was when he was promoted to lead the 10th Company. Both instances were truly important occasions in Loken's life, but they paled in comparison to this. As Loken looked around, he recognized prominent members of the Legion. Lord Commander Varvarus, the expedition's army commander, Igmay Singh, the mistress of astropathy, and countless others casually chatted as they stood waiting for the proceedings to begin. One figure that Loken did not recognize was looking out over the Strategium deck. Loken couldn't tell if he was a man or a machine, as his body appeared to have both flesh and metallic features.
Oh, a Mechanicus. Who's the leader of the Mechanicus Legion? Well, not Legion, but the Adeptus Mechanicus. Is it, what was it? Fuck, what was it? Bersarius Call? I don't remember.
Who is that?
That would be Regulus. He is the adept of the Mechanicum.
Before Loken could speak again, everyone around him fell to one knee, and the War Master walked into the center of the platform.
Oh boy.
Friends, all of you, please stand.
Horus walked slowly in a circular motion, smiling at those that surrounded him. Loken had been in the presence of Horus on many occasions, but each time felt just as electric as the first.
It is wonderful to be with you all, and I salute you for being present. I know that these briefing sessions can at times be monotonous, but I will do my best to keep you engaged.
The men and women in attendance quietly laughed, as Horus smiled and continued speaking.
I would like to start by thanking Peter Egon Momus for the outstanding work he has done reimagining the High City.
You mean in between him clamoring around his notes and during that one speech on the planet that bored people to tears and led to one man fainting? Yeah, that's really needs to thank this guy. In all fairness, though, that it's not easy giving a speech in front of a crowd of thousands, potentially, so it's kind of understandable.
As we embark on this crusade, conquering worlds would be doing humanity a great disservice. No, it is our duty to leave these worlds in better condition than when we found them. What we raise up is more important than what we strike down. After reviewing the designs that Peter shared with me, I can confidently assure all of you that the new High City will be a breathtaking sight. We thank you, Peter.
Oh, is Peter in the room with us right now?
Now welcome Adept Regulus, here to update us with the findings of the Mechanicum.
Thank you, Lord War Master. As the Mechanicum continues studying this world, we are pleased with the technologies that have been secured. Weapons that were employed against us are now being reverse engineered, as are particular defense structures and armor mechanics. Even more exciting is the discovery of 3 standard template construct patterns. These STC patterns were previously unknown to the Mechanicum, and they are being rigorously examined as we speak.
When he talks about the STCs, he's talking about pre-war technology. Well, I mean, pre-Imperium technology. This was back during the Dark Ages, when humanity was at its highest and its most pinnacle. The knowledge and means of which they constructed a lot of these machines got left in these things called STCs. And so the Mechanicum, because they're bizarre, they decide that they won't invent anything new, but that the technology already exists within the galaxy. They just need to go out and find it. And so they don't evolve or somehow innovates upon what's already there. What they really do is that they just build back up and regurgitate the things that have already been discovered. They value this so highly that it's in the re-explain video by Bricky, it was mentioned that a couple of people found an STC that told them how to make knives better. And so some Space Marines got it, and they've used the knives and found that the knives were actually really fucking good. And so they basically were like, this is such a great discovery. We're going to give each of you a fucking planet for you to rule. And it's like, damn. Give people a planet for helping to teach people how to make better knives. Fascinating. But yeah, that's just how important these STCs are, because there is no innovation unless it's discoverable. And so the hunt for the new technological advance is always there. It's always omnipresent in the Warhammer setting. And so if there was ever to be anything new technology-wise, It's going to have to be through an STC, or it's going to have to be through potentially some other nefarious means that probably has to do with a bit of heresy, but that's neither here or there.
Exceptional work, Adept Regulus. The Emperor will be grateful for this wonderful news. Lord Commander Varvarus, a word on the progress of compliance.
Thank you, War Master. As most of you are no doubt aware, General Rakris will be transitioning to a new title, Lord Governor Rakris, ensuring that this world accepts Imperial rule and that the political foundation remains stable will not be without its challenges. But we have no doubt that you will find tremendous success as Lord Governor, and we thank you for your continued loyalty to this campaign.
If Rakris was excited about his new role as governor of the world, his facial expression wasn't showing it. As worlds are brought to compliance, one of the least desired jobs is to step in and govern the freshly invaded world. Varvarus continued speaking about the progress of the campaign, and Loken couldn't help but feel sorry for Rakris. Loken understood better than most the challenges of bringing a world to true compliance, and knew it would be a long and arduous process. As Varvarus was concluding his briefing, his final words caught the attention of Horus.
We have made great progress and will continue to develop this world. But Lord Governor Rakris will proceed with cautious optimism, as we foresee a long road ahead of us before true Imperial equity is achieved.
May I ask, Lord Commander, why is it that you foresee an extended period of time until compliance is achieved? And in your estimation, what is a realistic time frame to achieve it?
As you know, Lord Warmaster, there are always pockets of resistance that organize to defy Imperial law. This is the case on many worlds. We are experiencing more significant resistance than originally anticipated in the Southern Hemisphere. It is difficult to say with certainty, but it could be a decade, maybe longer, until we are able to certify this world.
Oh my god, the buzzing.
I see.
A look of disappointment flashed across the War Master's face.
What is causing
The
that?
advance of the crusade must be halted. It would be negligent to leave Lord Governor Rakris in charge of a world where considerable friction still remains. If we must remain here to finish our work, then that is what must be done. Though it is a setback.
What is that?
It is deeply disappointing. Unless there is an alternative course of action.
As Horus glanced in the direction of Abaddon, Loken realized that this is what Torgadon had prepared him for.
Oh my god, what is causing that? Is that the video itself, or is that something else? Jesus. Hang on. I'm trying to figure this out. Is it noise? It's not a noise suppression, is it? No, because when I was having to play earlier, it was not the noise suppression. What if I got rid of the noise suppression? What if I just turned it off entirely? What if I just got rid of it? Just turn off the noise suppression on my end. Let's see what that does. Okay.
Loken stepped forward and...
Okay, no, it's just something about the video, I guess. God, that is weird. What is causing that? Is the cable loose? It could be the cable. There we go. Okay. Let's see, we're at 112. Give me a second. I'm going to try refreshing the page. Maybe that'll fix it somehow.
Is what must be done.
Oh my god, that actually fixed it. To a degree.
Though it is... It would be Then the advance of the crusade must be halted. It would be negligent to leave Lord Governor Rakris in charge of a world where considerable friction still remains. If we must remain here to finish our work, then that is what must be done. Though, it is a setback, one that is deeply disappointing. Unless there is an alternative course of action.
As Horus glanced in the direction of Abaddon, Loken realized that this is what Torgadon had prepared him for. Loken stepped forward and spoke.
Lord Warmaster.
Captain Loken, I welcome the thoughts of the Mournival.
I feel that a clean, calculated strike from the spear tip could quickly root out.
Okay, hang on. I'm gonna try and figure this out. Is it? Yeah, Dolby Atmos is on. What if I turn off spatial sound?
The remaining insurgents.
Oh god, no, it's even worse. It's in both ears now.
Employing the full scale of force.
Oh my god. Okay. I'm not sure what's causing that. I'm entirely honest with you. But I'm just gonna assume, right? It might just be the video itself and not necessarily my end, but it could easily be my end. I'm not sure what it is, how it's happening, but we're just gonna have to see if it fixes itself, because I really have no clue what's causing it. And nothing short of me just, I guess, maybe recording it and ending the stream will probably fix that, but that's not really fixing the solution, as it is just kind of like, well, it's potentially going to fuck up the video itself, and so I'm just going to let it go.
Under Lord Commander Varus would only prolong the battle. Further
Oh, it fixed itself, nice.
Crusade. I do not mean to overstep in any way, but I am
of the Mournival.
I feel that a clean, calculated strike from the spear tip could quickly root out the remaining insurgents. Employing the full scale of force under Lord Commander Varus would only prolong the battle, further postponing the crusade. I do not mean to overstep in any way, but I am of the belief that the Lunar Wolves can swiftly finish the job.
Are you implying, Captain Loken, that I order the entire Legion to the world?
No, Lord Warmaster. 10th Company is more than capable of eliminating the resisting forces. We were the first forces in, and we received tremendous praise for it. But it was premature. I ask that you allow 10th Company the opportunity to finish what we started.
Thoughts, Lord Commander?
I am in full support, Lord Warmaster. The Lunar Wolves could complete the mission in a fraction of the time, and preserve precious resources in doing so.
First, Captain.
I second Lord Commander Varus, Lord.
Then the order is made. I thank you, Captain Loken, for speaking up and cutting straight to the point. Please, organize 10th Company for assault, and I look forward to a prompt victory. With that decision, we can prepare for our advance.
Horus looked to his left and smiled as his equerry, Malachurst, slowly walked towards the center of the platform.
Equerry, could you please brief us on this matter?
As those in attendance saw Malachurst approaching the platform, they broke into a thunderous applause. Malachurst was a veteran of the Lunar Wolves, one of the sons of Horus, and his loyalty to the War Master was unwavering. Because of this, it surprised no one when Malachurst was formally chosen to serve as the Primarch's equerry. He was known to be extremely intelligent, holding a firm grasp on the political aspects of the Legion. Amongst his duties, Malachurst acted as a filter for the War Master, advising Horus when needed while also preventing unnecessary items from ever reaching him. He was seen as completely neutral, loyal only to the War Master and no one else. Because of this, he wasn't popular amongst the others in the Legion, earning him his nickname, the Twisted. But as unliked as Malachurst was, everyone was thrilled to see him step onto the platform. During the assault of 6319, Malachurst's Stormbird was damaged as he was making planetfall, and he was forced to escape via drop pod. Everyone assumed him to be dead, and it wasn't until the equerry's drop pod had been located that he was found alive, albeit gravely injured. This was the first time in the public eye since he was rescued on the surface of 6319, and the excitement in the room was overwhelming.
I'm very happy to be here with you all. Admittedly, this is because it means that I am no longer lying in bed next to an apothecary.
His comment earned him more laughter and another round of applause. He then activated a holomap and 2 areas lit up on the display.
Before the crusade advances, there are options that I would like to present. We currently have 2 potential areas to consider. The first, which we will refer to as 85817, is the closest to our current location. There are multiple systems of interest, and many of them appear to have elemental resources. Preliminary reports indicate that there are no life forms in these systems, and I would therefore deem this area a low priority.
The hololithic display zoomed in on the second area, and data pertaining to the system began to flash across the map.
The second area, in my opinion, deserves a closer look. We are approximately 12 standard weeks out from this system, and as such, our scouts have yet to reach the area. But we have received communication from the 140th expedition of the Blood Angels. They are reporting opposition to Imperial forces. Communication from the 140th has been intermittent.
Oh, interesting. We might actually see the Blood Angels make an appearance. That's actually pretty cool. I've always heard that Horus and Sanguinius were kind of like brothers in arms, so it's be interesting to see how that actually appears in this particular video, an instance. I would love to see that, actually. Let me see here. I am currently trying to rescale this window because I want to be able to see some aspects of the video on my end. Let's see, there we go. No, okay. Anywho, go ahead and just minimize that and pop it up when needed. There we go. Sorry about that. Anyways, I can't wait to see if Sanguinius makes an appearance in particular. Hell, even Dante would be a pretty good one. I would love to see what Dante... Well, then again, Dante wasn't around during the heresy. I actually had to look this up because I was talking with a friend of mine about some of the lore bits, and we were having a discussion about who was the oldest space marine, and my immediate thought was, of course, Dante, but it turned out Dante has only been alive, as far as we know, for about 1,000 years documented so far, and he wasn't around during the Horus heresy, so I'm actually kind of curious who we might meet, as well as if we're going to meet Sanguinius or not. It's going to be fascinating.
But the last transmission indicated that they had gone to war with enemy forces, Xenos forces. I have attempted to communicate with the 140th to see if they require support, but have not received a response. With that being said, migrating towards their location seems to be the most logical option.
I agree. I will speak with Sanguinius in regards to this situation. But these are our brothers, and a failure to support them in a time of war could prove to be pernicious. Thank you, Equerry, for providing the intelligence. To the rest of you, I thank you for your time and diligence. This briefing is dissolved, and we will reconvene in 2 days.
The bridge began to clear out, and Loken's Mournival brothers congratulated him.
Nice job, Garvey. I half expected you to stumble over your words, but you made me proud.
You did an excellent job. Confident and direct. The War Master respects those who aren't intimidated by his presence.
And you aren't intimidated when speaking to the War Master under these circumstances?
I used to be, but I'm not anymore. It gets easier over time. Here's a tip for you. Look at his feet.
His feet?
Yes. If you look into his eyes, you'll forget your words before they have the chance to leave your mouth.
Abaddon had been speaking with the War Master before he had left to his chamber, and walked over to his brothers.
Great job, Garville. All that's left for you to do is clean up the last of the insurgents when you and your men get down there.
I will, sir.
It's Ezekiel. Now, enough chatting. The War Master would like a word with us.
The Mournival walked through the pristine glass doors into the War Master's private chamber. It sat below the audience galleries of the bridge, and it was just as magnificent as one would imagine it to be. The back wall was constructed entirely of glass, and Loken caught himself gazing at the brilliance of the stars on the other side. The Mournival stood towards the back of the chamber, waiting quietly until they were called upon by Horus. There were only a few others in the chamber, 2 Astartes adorned in yellow armor, standing near a sleek, leather couch in front of the glass wall. Horus and Malachers were in conversation with a figure much larger than the Astartes in yellow armor. A giant. Rogel Dorn, Primarch of the Imperial Fists. Loken found himself in awe of what he was seeing. The sight of 2 Primarchs talking informally right in front of him felt strange. Loken was not yet used to the new, still unfamiliar status that his elevation to the Mournival presented him, and he realized that this was the smallest room that him and Dorn had ever occupied at the same time. The 2 Imperial Fists walked over to stand and wait with the Mournival. Loken's brothers knew these Astartes well, but he had yet to formally meet either one of them.
Captain Loken, your plan has my full support. Get in, eliminate the threat, and get out.
That is the plan. Evict the last of the insurgents, so Lord Governor Rakris could start rebuilding with a clean slate. I'm looking forward to the day when this finally ends, when the last world is brought to compliance, and we can finally rest.
Sigismund squinted his eyes and gave Loken a look of skepticism.
The day when this finally ends? Is that supposed to be a joke?
I'm not sure what leads you to believe I'm joking.
This crusade will never end. Never. The galaxy is endless, Captain Loken. The further we venture out, the more worlds we discover. Our thirst to conquer them will never be quenched.
I completely disagree. Why is it that you think we are embarking on this crusade? It is to bring peace to the stars.
That's quite an optimistic view of our mission. It seems to me that our crusade of bringing peace to the stars is impossible. The nature of mankind makes it so.
Loken was uncomfortable with how the conversation had turned, taken aback by Sigismund's fatalistic view.
I don't believe such a thing. I trust in our purpose, and I trust in our reason for unifying all under Imperial rule. The day we stop believing in that will be a sad one indeed.
Captain Loken, I've heard a lot about you. Knowing what you have accomplished and what you have done for the Lunar Wolves, I am honored to be standing before you. But your naive perspective astonishes me. Our lives will be spent fighting for the security of the Imperium. And if the day ever comes that it is truly secured, the time we have left will be spent fighting to prevent it from collapsing. We're fighting for preservation. I don't see peace in our future. I see war.
He's got an interesting point. As fatalistic as it certainly is an actual point. There is a more optimistic lens from Garviel's side of things, certainly, but I feel like that Sigismund's point of view is also just as valid. And honestly, it's also turns out to be fairly accurate, considering that we do end up actually still fight wars, still squabbling over territories, continuously fighting against Xenos races, among other things. I think that, at least from Garviel's perspective, right, I think that fighting against mankind for, again, putting them into compliance and adding them to the Imperium, reestablishing old territory and old ground, I can see why that would be a terrible thing, and he would be eager to want to put it in with. But I think Sigismund is looking at the greater picture of just thinking, like, both, not just with like humanity constantly being at war with itself and potentially maybe some type of uprising starting up in all of these different vast territories, but it's also very likely that, the wars between the Xenos races such as the Orcs and the Elves, those will probably never go away truly. And I have no idea when the Necrons here are going to show up, but they're going to eventually make an appearance. And if we're not even talking about just the Necrons, well, not the Necrons here, but the Necrons themselves, eventually, right, we're going to have to deal with the Tyranids, and that's always going to be a fun one. Oh boy, is that going to be a fun one. And that's not even mentioning the eventual appearance of Chaos, the eventual and ever so likely appearance of Chaos. But that's not for a little later.
You're wrong.
Torgadon could feel the tension between the two, and felt it best to de-escalate the situation.
Don't worry about him, Garvey. Brother Sigismund is more sensitive than most. His feelings are hurt that his legion's withdrawing from the battle, leaving all the glory for us lunar wolves.
Ah, withdrawing, are we? Being summoned to terror by the Emperor himself to protect the Imperial Palace? I think you're confused as to who will be receiving the glory. Besides, you're sadly mistaken if you lunar wolves believe you'll be bringing the crusade to its conclusion. The Imperial Fists will have ample opportunity to return to the stars, and when we do, no one will remember you poor lunar wolves.
Torgadon smiled, feeling content that he had calmed Sigismund down.
Maybe I should slap you around a bit, and we'll see if you remember the lunar wolves, huh?
I'd rather you didn't. First Captain Sigismund whines enough as it is. I don't need you giving him a beating and making it even worse.
Rogel Dorn got as close to smiling as was possible for him.
The conversation got so escalated that even Rogel Dorn had to kind of come in and be basically like the very dutiful father and just be like, okay, boys, knock it the fuck off. You're stepping on each other's toes a little too hard. You're getting a little too comfortable about creasing each other's Jordans. Let's just calm it down a little bit. Jesus. And he smiled. I know it's not that often that Rogel Dorn smiles, considering how serious of an individual he is, but it's still funny to even imagine. I wonder if Rogel Dorn, right, as he already admitted, Sigismund is a bit of a whiner, and he knows him to be as such. I wonder if Dorn... I'm actually kind of curious now, because that actually... How does Sigismund actually function? Who is Sigismund? Kind of think of it, isn't Sigismund one of the more accomplished Space Marines that's a part of the chapter, now that I think about it? The Imperial Fists have a warrior by the name, I think, of Sigismund, who basically is one of their more accomplished Astartes among their chapter, right? Isn't that who Sigismund is? Or am I thinking of somebody else? I'm trying to remember. But it's interesting that even Dorn is commenting on the personality and the whiny nature, the very precarious nature of this Sigismund. And I find it interesting that he's just as likely as to put him down as everybody else is willing to kind of question and banter with him about his viewpoints, even if it is a little like yes, even if his comments are a bit fatalistic. I think it's he has a very interesting perspective, to be sure, one that is likely to come true. But I think maybe that's, now that I think about it, maybe that's why Dorn keeps him around. It's not just because of his skill, but also because his pessimistic viewpoint does harbor some sense of kernel of truth to it, like something like an unspoken and usually a very uneasy truth. Sigismund is the kind of person who probably says the quiet parts out loud, whereas Garviel would rather believe in the potential of something better in the given situations. I'm not too sure. This actually leads to a more deeper methodical question, but that probably could be easily resolved if we just, get to know the characters a bit more, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Let's just move on.
And everyone else laughed at his friendly banter.
Captain Loken, may I speak with you?
Oh boy.
Loken nodded and followed him into the corner of the chamber, leaving his brothers and the Imperial Fists to chat amongst themselves.
How are you getting along, Captain? Very well, Lord. Getting acquainted with my new position. You're not used to the likes of me, are you, Loken? No, Lord. Not yet, at least. It's refreshing. Ezekiel, Tarek, and Aximund. They've spent so much time around my brother that they are desensitized to it. You are not. You feel the weight. You understand that the Primarch is not like a man or an Astartes. I understand what I am capable of. I understand what is expected of me. But sometimes the thought of what I am, it makes me shudder. Do you suppose Horus ever feels the same way? I don't believe so, Lord. I'm not sure he's capable of forming a thought that isn't rooted in self-confidence. I agree with you. That is why he was the correct choice to become War Master. My brother's self-confidence is what makes you even more important. Lord? A man is only as good as the counsel he receives. This is true for anyone, even the War Master. And when someone is as self-confident as the War Master, it is even more critical that he is surrounded by those that are tempered and honest. The Mournival. I surround myself with those that I trust. I know that Sigismund will tell me the truth, even if I don't like it. He does not become weak in the presence of a demigod. He shows strength. He keeps me honest. You must do this for your lord. I will, Lord. Your name was not the first that was put forward to join the Mournival. There were others. Sedire, Cruz. Honorable warriors. They would have done well. They're sycophants. Bloodthirsty. Sedire wants nothing more than conflict, and he would blindly guide the Lunar Wolves towards unnecessary war. Cruz wouldn't hesitate for a moment to say or do anything, so long as he thought it would keep him in my brother's favor. I've had my eye on you for years, Captain Loken. This is why I vouched for you.
I often forget that Rogel Dorn may be seen as more of like a blunt force instrument by most and has a very serious temperament as a result, but he's not actually stupid. I sometimes have to remind myself of this because it's so often that I see the memes, and it kind of goes in that direction a lot of the time. But I also recognize that Dorn would not be as successful of a defender as he is if he wasn't strategically sound. And you would have to have a brain to be strategically sound. And so Rogel Dorn, once again, I get shocked and amazed at the level of intelligence on display. And personality, while he is certainly kind of dry, he is certainly to the point, I will admit. And that's kind of refreshing as well, considering that a lot of both what we've seen from the Ultramarines, even in the 40k fashion, to even with a little bit of the Lunar Wolves, it's a bit fanciful. It's a little too whimsical. And so having someone like Rogel Dorn basically is just like, I care about results, to the point, matter of fact, nonchalant, ain't pussyfooting around. It's a nice change of pace.
The Mournival needs courage, a voice strong enough to stand up against opposing views. I am honored, Lord. Some of our brothers aren't as understanding as I am. They didn't agree with the decision to elect Horus the War Master. They need to see Horus is firmly in control, and I believe that you can properly guide my brother. What makes you unique, Captain, and I mean no offense by this, but it's your humanity that sets you apart. I see something very human in you that I don't see in other Astartes.
The gravity of this conversation was not lost on Loken, and he felt an equal mixture of pride and distress.
I understand. This responsibility is not to be taken lightly, and I feel the weight of it.
Be yourself. I supported your nomination for a reason. I can rest easy as I return to Terra, knowing that you are part of the Monivol.
With all due respect, Lord, you speak of Serere and his hunger for battle. I have done no different. I just proposed a war.
I heard you do just that, Captain. You articulated your case rather elegantly. With time and with experience, you'll learn how to navigate your role. Sometimes you must stand up and advise, and other times you must allow the War Master to use you.
Allow the War Master to use me?
Yes, Captain. Horus is presenting himself as a peacemaker, one that appeals to many worlds within the Imperium. The suggestion to go to war needed to come from someone else.
What a fascinating conversation. There's kind of something to be... There's an interesting dissection we could have with that whole encounter. I think that it would require a bit more time to really go back and kind of revisit this conversation for me to really dissect it all, to really get the most out of it. But that's a very fascinating conversation. And as far as like the significance of Loken's position, I do agree that Loken does present a level of humanity to the whole proceedings of the Mortal. I don't know if he's the only human-like quality type of person there, but the fact that he is put in that position for that reason is an interesting one. But he's clearly not the only favorite on the Mournival. Apparently he's liked by everybody, so that's good that he's both liked by his Legion and also liked by Dorn in particular. It's interesting that Dorn, though, likes him just as much as everybody else does. To earn the favor of a Primarch, he's becoming very quickly and easily the I guess you could say the teacher's pet, so to speak. But that probably speaks more to the quality and nature of his character rather than his actual deeds, though he has certainly developed a list of deeds that make him impressive even to his own Legion. Which is why it's so easy for people of his own Legion to respect him as well, because he actually gets the job done and he's not just the pet favorite. You know, he actually earns his position instead of just gets everything handed to him, like some people might. The Sons of Horus might be an example of that, but I do not know. This is an interesting whole discussion. I don't know if I could properly articulate anything about what I have just seen that could better explain it, that I could pick apart that doesn't just explain itself as satisfactorily as what we've just seen. I like this entire exchange. I would love to see more of this, but amongst the Primarchs. I want to see the Primarchs interact. There is nothing that would bring me more satisfaction than to actually see these godlike Primarchs almost that are on the same level as the God Emperor or just the Emperor himself, basically, you know, go about their daily business and their own daily interactions, not just with them, not with amongst themselves, but also with their own particular Space Marine legions. And that part is the part that really fascinates me. You know, when I was getting into this novel, I wasn't expecting it from the perspective of another Space Marine. I was expecting it from the perspective of, like, the Primarch of Horus himself. But you know, this is a unique perspective that I don't see very often. And plus, we get to see a side of the Lunar Wolves that we wouldn't have seen if we were only seeing it from Horus's eyes. So I think that presents itself a unique sort of like facsimile from which we can sort of look at this whole situation. And I think that's probably the best part of this whole story. I think the perspective combined with the story and the writing quality, as well as the interesting character bits and interactions, they all lead and lend itself to a very interesting narrative that's being told here. And I can't wait to see exactly how this is all going to unfold, because it does present itself with a lot of interesting sort of like with an interesting sort of unique lens as to how the everything is and how it's all probably going to inevitably and lead up to, right? Because we still have yet to get to the actual reason why we are even getting stories like this. You know, we still have yet to see what it is that's going to drive a person like Horus into the eventual decisions and directions that he will eventually go down the road of. And it's going to be interesting to see other people's reactions towards that. And in particular, I'm kind of interested to see how Garviel is going to adjust to a lot of the shakeups that will happen when that inevitable likelihood eventually arises. And I feel like that's what this whole novel is leading up towards, because this is an entire story that's based off of the novel. Much like the Last Church was probably exactly like. It was very much a spoof of that as well. I'm interested to see where this all leads, but I don't know how it's all going to boil over. And that's the part that fascinates me most, is like, how is this all going to beautifully culminate into something that's going to be equally as tragic, but equally as grim? How is this going to turn so quickly, and yet how is this all going to be done so rationally and yet calmly? How is this all going to be tied up? I wanted to see for myself, but that's just my thoughts and opinions on it so far, and I'm enjoying this. I very much am enjoying this. I can't wait to see more. And I know there's a part 2 to this. I don't know if I'll see it in my own time, or if you guys want to see me react to the part 2. And I would not mind reacting to the part 2 on the channel. Just give me like a heads up if you want me to. Like leave a comment, maybe put a like down there, like on this video if you want to see a part 2. It's the easiest thing you could do. Just show a lot of love and affection for the video, and I'll make a reaction for it. I'll make a reaction to the part 2 of this series. But anyways, enough of that. Let's just get back into it.
Euphrates Keeler and 5 other remembrancers walked down the corridor of the embarkation deck. The size of the deck was incredible, and she found it difficult to comprehend that this is one of 6 decks on the Vengeful Spirit. Equerry Malachurst had granted access for the remembrancers to document the Luna Wolves before they made their descent to 6319. They carefully followed the lead of an iterator who guided them through the loud, bustling deck. He made it very clear that taking pics in this area was prohibited, but Keeler had no intentions of abiding by that rule. She captured images of the massive, white stormbirds on their launch carriages, and of the servitors that were doing maintenance work on them.
Hey, I thought we weren't allowed to take pics in here.
We're not, but if they didn't want that to happen, they shouldn't have invited imagists.
As they walked further into the deck, Keeler spotted another iterator, one that she recognized. Kyril Cinderman caught her gaze, and smiled as he gave her a polite nod. She continued walking with the group, but couldn't help but wonder where Mercedy was. She had been one of the 6 that was approved for access, but when everyone had arrived to meet the iterator that morning, Mercedy wasn't there. Instead, another remembrancer was selected to take her place. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a low, heavy drum hit. As the booming sound of the drum continued, 300 Astartes in their magnificent white armor marched onto the deck. They all stopped at once, standing perfectly still in lines of 50. Keeler watched in amazement as they assembled for war and prepared to make planetfall. The fluidity of the process was an incredible sight. The 300 giant warriors boarded their ships and prepared their weapons, as if they had practiced this exact scenario thousands of times.
These Astartes have already taken their oaths of moment.
What's an oath of moment?
It is the oath that each soldier of the Imperium takes. They swear their oath in the moments before their mission begins, hence it is called the Oath of Moment.
Haven't they already sworn an oath to the Imperium?
They have, but the Oath of Moment binds them directly to the mission they are embarking on. It is a specific oath, and they are pledging to an individual task.
Cinderman and the Remembrancers spoke quietly to each other in the background, and the Luna Wolves had all been assigned to their Stormbirds. Now, only 4 Astartes remained on the embarkation deck.
This is a moment you do not want to miss.
As Captain Loken kneeled before the 3 other Astartes, Keeler nervously captured as many pics as she could.
The captain is always the last person to take their oath of moment. And look at this. The rest of the Mournival is standing by to witness Captain Loken's pledge.
Keeler never stopped taking pics, and as Captain Loken swore his oath, Keeler captured one particular image that would stand out from all the others. A perfectly framed shot of Loken on one knee, surrounded by Abaddon, Torgadon, and Aximan. And true to its name, it was only a moment later that Loken's oath was sworn. He loaded into his Stormbird and prepared to depart.
Everyone, our time is up. Please follow me.
As they filed into the observation deck, the Remembrancers were elated, still processing the once-in-a-lifetime moment they had just witnessed. The documentarists scribbled furiously to capture every detail of the experience, while a couple of others stood by the observation windows, hoping to catch a glimpse of the Stormbirds making their descent. Cinderman was busy in conversation with a man that had entered the deck only moments before. Keeler sat alone, scanning the images that she had taken on her picture. She was pleased with what she was able to get, but her eyes kept returning to the Mournival image. She knew it was special, something worth celebrating.
If I could please ask for your attention, Remembrancers. Equerry Malachurst would like to make an announcement.
I have spoken with senior officers of the expedition, and after careful consideration, it has been decided that 6 Remembrancers will be permitted to travel to the surface to observe the mission.
The Remembrancers couldn't believe their luck, and there was nothing they could do that would hide the excitement on their faces.
This decision was intensely debated. There were, and still are, concerns about what you may see on the surface. For anyone who has never been to one, war zones can be shocking and disturbing. We ultimately felt, however, that being transparent about what we do in matters of war would be the best course of action. We cannot expect the Remembrancers to celebrate and document the Imperial truth if they do not witness it firsthand.
The Remembrancers quietly nodded their heads in agreement.
There were also concerns about your safety, especially after the disastrous incident with that Remembrancer being assaulted on the surface earlier this week.
Keeler and Bradstreet glanced at each other with looks of confusion. This was the first time that they had heard of any such incident, and Keeler was intrigued as to what had happened.
With that being said, we consider this mission to be low risk, and you will be kept at a safe distance from any dangerous areas.
To second what Equerry Malachurst said, you will be accompanied by me at all times, as per the War Master's direct orders.
The observation deck began abruptly shaking, and through the viewing windows, they bore witness to the sight of a dozen Stormbirds launching towards 6319.
An incident of a Remembrancer being attacked on the surface. What do you think that was about?
Yeah, Ignace probably ended up losing his life, more than likely. The fuck? Oh, wait a minute, Samus? Samus? Isn't that the demon? Isn't that the demon who basically, if I remember correctly, according to Wes Hammer or something, he's just like, Samus is here, and then he fucking like, he just body like explodes out of people, and then he just starts unleashing hell. Isn't that the demon? Isn't that the demon who does that? That is seen as a bit more comical than most because of that fact. Just like Samus is here, bam. Just isn't that who that is? Or am I thinking of a different demon? It sounds like the same demon, but maybe I'm mistaken. I have no idea. It's been a while since I've seen that video.
The Stormbird descended to the surface below. Loken walked down the corridor and entered the cockpit.
What's going on with the Fox? It sounds like there's some conversation, but I can't make out who it is or what they're saying.
I hear it too, Captain. I can only assume the atmospherics are creating a signal disturbance.
Signal disturbance. That's a new one.
Outside of that, Captain, I don't have another explanation. The vengeful spirit isn't detecting it, but I got reports from the other Stormbird officers. They're experiencing the same disruptions we are.
Listen, you hear it? It's getting worse.
It must be something on the surface that is interfering with our frequency. The closer we get, the stronger the interference is. That must be why the vengeful spirit isn't picking up on it.
We can't deploy 10th Company on the ground if this is what we're getting over Vox. Do something to fix it, and quickly.
I can try and reroute the signal through a buffer, Captain. Give me just a second.
The officer adjusted a number of controls, concentrating on a dizzying amount of screens and knobs that made up his control panel.
Let's try it now.
Okay, we can work with this, but I still can't make out the voice.
The flight officer turned back to the control panel and made more adjustments, and all of a sudden, the voices they were hearing over the Vox became much more clear.
It is all around you. It means the end and the death.
Who is that?
I have no idea, Captain. The data is scrambled.
Samus. It is the only name you hear. Samus is the man beside you.
Loken was completely transfixed by the distant voice he was hearing on the Vox, and he struggled to make sense of it.
I am Samus. Samus is all around you. Samus will gnaw upon your bones. Samus is here.
It must be the same
The
demon
Vox
that I'm
went
thinking
dead,
of.
and all that remained was static.
I don't know what I just heard.
What you just heard, officer, was our enemy trying to scare us. And it isn't going to work.
Oh, you have no fucking idea. Village of Kashuri.
The sun was rising,
Kashiri.
casting rays of light on the mountain range known as the Whisperheads. In contrast to the high city, the air was thin in the southern hemisphere of 6319. The altitude was much higher here, and it held the appearance of a different world altogether. Instead of developed cities with modern buildings that peeked through the clouds, the southern hemisphere was desolate. Near the base of the mountain range were poorly maintained backwater villages. The residents feared for their lives as they watched the 16th Legion Stormbirds enter the atmosphere and touch down on the dry rock surface. 10th Company dispersed from their ships and quickly organized themselves into squads. It hadn't taken much time at all for Loken to determine that the conditions were less than optimal. Following the advice of Aximand, Loken had selected Nero Vipus to oversee 10th Company. This was a blow to the ego of Xavier Jabal, who was upset by the fact that he was not chosen to replace Loken. Jabal had been sulking ever since the announcement was made, and to make matters worse, the men on the ground were showing deference to him instead of Vipus.
I mean, that seems kind of apt, considering, all things considered, but I do think that it's a bit, if you vibe, right? And if you're not exactly vibing too well with the people around you, then it only makes sense that your achievements won't be acknowledged. There's a weird sociological aspect to it that simply action does not always just, convey nearly as reticently. And to be a leader of any type of, especially in war times, right? To be a leader of any squad, you want someone who can get the job done quickly and efficiently, and is also someone you can trust, someone you have a decent rapport with, and Vipus is just one of those people. Jabal just is lacking. In whatever way, he is lacking, and he just needs to accept this.
Reports from the Imperial Army, who had already been stationed in the southern hemisphere, informed Loken of their difficulties containing the zealots from the villages. And, unfortunately, the Vox disturbances were just as active now as they had been during their descent. Loken wanted to stay true to his word. His plan was to get in, finish off the enemy, and get out. He knew from intelligence reports that the insurgents had fled to a makeshift base in the mountains and had taken up defensive positions along the perimeter of it.
Lunar Wolves, let us waste no time. Rasek, Terminator Squad is to lead the charge. I want you to clear the path for Hellbore. Jubal, follow right behind, and once there is an opening, I want your squad to be the first strike.
There wasn't much in Loken's mind, but publicly asking Jabal to lead the first assault strike instead of Vipus was enough to finally end his moping.
Let's make the War Master proud.
They charged ahead, the sergeants leading their squads towards the mountain range. Loken and Vipus stayed behind and headed towards a group of army regiments that had taken up cover behind a rock barricade.
I'm impressed, Captain. Your political skills have improved greatly since joining the Mournival.
You understand, Nero?
Of course I do. If grabbing the glory on the way in will help Jubal snap out of it, I'm all for it.
Jubal will be fine. His chance will come soon enough.
I want to ask you something. What do you make of this Samus? It's about the only damn thing I've heard on the Vox since we left the Vengeful Spirit.
I wouldn't give it much thought. It's nothing more than a scare tactic.
The Imperial Army soldiers did not have the benefit of enhanced pulmonary systems like the Astartes, and were utilizing rebreathers to combat the altitude.
Sir, the village of Kasheri is fully compliant. The remaining insurgents have retreated from the surrounding villages and have taken up high ground.
Thank you. We'll assume control moving forward.
We've had difficulties taking the bridges, sir. They have a strong position over us and attack with heavy cannons any time we attempt to approach. Also,
as I said, we'll assume control from here.
I get that you're Astartes, sir, but with all due respect, we've been here for over a month. You haven't even been here 15 minutes. I think debriefing with us would be to your benefit.
I disagree. Head back to your command post, soldier. We're more than capable of handling the situation.
Yeah, well, good luck to you. I didn't want to stay in this haunted place anyway.
The soldier turned his back on Loken and began walking away, but Loken called out to him and stopped him in his tracks.
Soldier, what did you just say to me?
I said I didn't want to stay in this place anyway.
Are you sure that's what you said?
This haunted place.
Haunted? Are you confessing to me a belief in spirits?
No, of course not. But this place isn't... I don't know how to say it. The mountains. They're called the Whisperheads for a reason.
A superstitious reason. Look at the people in these villages. I can't imagine what other superstitions or Dark Age myths they believe in.
I don't care what these people believe in. I've heard the whispers myself, sir. Voices.
Voices?
Usually at night, not always though. Sometimes in broad daylight. Ever since we got here, I've been hearing them. On the Vox.
The voices you're hearing on the Vox are from our enemy. Childish games from fools whose minds have been ruined.
That's what I thought too. So I turned the Vox unit off. But the voices didn't stop.
Then perhaps it's time that you got your head checked.
What about my men? Should they all get their heads checked too? Every single one of them has heard the voices. I'm not crazy, sir. None of us are.
And what are those voices saying?
That Samus is here. Samus is all around us.
Who is Samus?
Samus? I don't recognize the name.
Me either, but I keep hearing it on the Vox channel.
The Remembrancers had just disembarked their lander ships and were walking through the village of Kashiri. It was cold, much colder than the Remembrancers had expected it to.
This is all turning into a very interesting sort of atmospheric situation. There's a level of unknown mixed with like a certain type of like a horror aspect to it that I do appreciate. I this is turning. I always thought that Samus was a bit more of like he was going to be a bit more of like a sudden here I am, bam, now you're all going to fucking die type of character. Like he's more of like I'm here, I'm going to kill, I'm going to kill as much as humanly possible, and then fuck off. But no, apparently there's a subtlety to this that I don't know if it's on Samus's part or if it's just, you know, like Samus just likes to broadcast the fact that he exists. I have no idea. I like the subtle like sort of atmospheric approach they're taking with this. It's very appreciative.
To be, and they quickly understood why they needed to be outfitted with rebreather masks. They could hear the sounds of battle in the distance, but they were not yet permitted to enter the war zone. The seemingly deserted village was their designated safe area, and they were instructed to stay there until they received clearance to leave. The battle had only just begun, and having remembrancers wandering around an active war zone before the enemy had been neutralized would have been a terrible idea.
How much you want to bet one of these remembrancers turns into Samus? How much you want to bet? That would explain why we have a focus on the remembrancers, especially now that Ignis is gone. It would certainly lend itself to a unique perspective, not just on the horrific side of things, but also just on the sheer human side of like, you are a person, you are a normal ass human on a barren wasteland of a world surrounded by the unknown, and one of your fucking people just turned into a giant Goliath-sized demon ready to fucking murder you. Can you imagine? It's got to be like the most. It's got to be the most daunting thing.
The village was surrounded by Imperial soldiers, and there was nothing for them to do but wait and listen to the Vox chatter. Bradstreet had been listening to it for nearly an hour at this point, and had lost track of how many times he heard the name Samus.
I overheard one of the soldiers saying that the Vox has been acting up for a week, maybe longer. They think it's the enemy trying to scare us.
And I am certain that's all it is.
Cinderman walked away to stand by himself, then looked down and began tapping the screen on his data slate. He studied it for a few moments, then unknowingly spoke to himself after reading something on the data slate screen.
Very interesting.
What's very interesting?
Oh, nothing. I was just thinking out loud.
Thinking about what?
It's truly nothing, Euphrates. Please feel free to explore the village and capture pics of the soldiers and their armored vehicles.
No offense to the soldiers, but I don't much care to take pics of them or their vehicles. I'm more interested in what you saw on your data slate that piqued your interest.
Euphrates, there's so much to see down here. Don't allow me to bore you with this.
If it's about Samus, I promise it won't bore me. I would very much like to hear about it.
Cinderman sighed, then smiled as he slowly shook his head.
Your diligence impresses me, Euphrates. Yes, I was reading about Samus, but from what I've read here, it's actually rather silly.
But you didn't say this is rather silly. You said very interesting.
That is a real reporter right there. Forget the pics aspect of it. She is a goddamn reporter. She is absolutely honing in on the truth here. Just like, hey, I know you know something. Tell me what it's about. Tell me. Give it to me straight. I don't care if it sounds lunacy. I want to hear about it. I want to know it. You're going to tell me this shit now.
Both things can be true. Those mountains in the distance, they're called the Whisperheads. The literature I brought up on the data slate refers to the Whisperheads as a holy place. Apparently they are called the Whisperheads because it is the only place on this world where you can hear the whispers of the spirits. Samus, according to this, is one of those spirits.
And why do you find that to be silly?
Because spirits do not exist, and believing in such things is silly.
Then what about it was interesting to you?
In all honesty, even though such superstitions are at odds with the imperial truth, I can't help but find the topics fascinating. They are incontestably false, but I have always found the belief systems of ancient cultures to be intriguing, if nothing else.
So, Samus is a spirit, and that's what the voices are?
Of course not. The voices on the Vox are just the enemy attempting to intimidate us.
But I don't have a Vox, sir. And I've been hearing the voices ever since the ship landed.
The Luna Wolves had been in battle for only 45 minutes, but they already felt confident that they had seized control. The insurgents did their best to hold their position, firing heavy cannons, sentry guns, and detonating charges. These tactics successfully held off the troops of Lord Commander Varvarus for nearly 6 weeks, but they did nothing to slow down the Luna Wolves. The shields were crushed by the Terminator squads, and their sentry fire ricocheted off the Luna Wolves' armor.
I love the fucking art for this, by the way.
As their perimeter defenses were crushed by the Astartes, the insurgents retreated further into their fortress, which lied deep within the Whisperheads. By the time Loken had made it inside the fortress, enemy corpses had already started to pile up. He walked down a dark, blood-stained corridor when he came across one of the wounded enemies. The man was wheezing, barely hanging on to life. He spoke, but Loken couldn't understand what the man said, and he knelt down beside him.
What is it?
Please, before I die, pray for me.
I can't do that.
I beg of you. I will be banished. I perish without being blessed.
I'm sorry. It will all be over soon.
Just one prayer for my God.
There are no gods.
Loken put the man out of his misery and advanced through the fortress. He entered a much larger chamber and found that Vipus was already inside. Water dripped slowly from the dark black ceiling, and in the middle of the chamber, a large hole was cut into the floor. Loken initially thought the pool was there to collect water reserves. He felt a chill run through his body as he looked closer. Glass containers, clay dolls, and animal skulls were set around the edges of the pool. Above it, words had been chiseled into the rock overhang, but Loken couldn't read the words as they were written in a language he was unfamiliar with.
What is this?
Looks like some kind of shrine. We found 20 others just like it. We destroyed them, just like we're going to destroy this one.
Loken stood silently for a moment, staring down at the pool.
Do you ever think about, well, what could have become of us had the Emperor not saved us?
I don't. Maybe you could enlighten me.
This could have been all of mankind. We were headed down the same path. We were zealots, blinded by religion and believing in myths, until the Emperor showed us the path towards the truth.
And think terror that he did.
I just wish these people would have listened. Saddens me that they think we came here with the intentions of killing them. All we wanted to do was show them the same path that the Emperor showed us. And because of their misguided beliefs in spirits and gods, they felt that they were immortal.
Now they've met true immortals. Don't let this weigh too heavy on your mind. You can rest easy knowing that you brought them the truth.
God, that is a line. That is a whiplash and a half. Just like, now they've met true immortals. Don't let this weigh too heavy on your mind. You can rest easy knowing that you brought them the truth. So, does that mean that the truth is now your god? I mean, this is the imperial truth, right? That means there's nothing false about it. That means there's only one form of understanding, right? And that's through the methods of science and logic and reason. But even that, too, could be twisted into something that could be just as easily as fallible. You know, like, it's all science is based off of the method and not so much the answer, right? We all believe in the methods, but not so much the answer, because the answer is always superfluous. It's always a matter of interpretation. The method is what makes it work. The method is what we rely on. People do the same thing with religion. You know, like, they all have traditions and cultures, and they believe that these methods of worship are what brings them the truth and the meaning in their lives. But all the Imperium really is, when you really sit down and actually look at what they're saying versus what they're doing, it's just another form of zealotry. It's just another aspect of religious favor. Well, not favor, but fervor that has plagued even the people of the 30th century. It's actually kind of interesting when you think about it. The sheer contrast. Oh, we don't believe in religion. We just believe in the imperial truth, which in itself is its own law and religion, just without it being called a religion. It's actually kind of funny. But anyways, it's just an interesting thing to look at and point out.
Loken didn't respond. He was still staring at the pool, seemingly lost in thought.
We're just about done here. The Iterators made contact not too long ago. They were requesting permission to bring the remembrances up here. If you approve, I can inform the Iterator.
Approved. Let them know, and I'll inform the fleet that we're almost finished.
Before either of them could say another word, Loken heard the crackle of his Vox unit.
Captain, can you hear me?
Yes, Jubal. Go ahead.
Captain, you need to see this.
What is it that I need to see?
I found him. He's...
Jubal, repeat. Found who?
It's the end and the death.
I don't understand what you mean. Where are you?
My locator is active, Captain. Follow my signal. You need to see this.
Okay, but I need to know what it is you found.
I can see it now, Captain. All of us can. Samus is here.
Vipus stayed behind to destroy the shrine and mop up any remaining insurgents in the fortress, while Loken and 5 other Luna Wolves headed towards Jubal's location. Jubal's locator indicated that he was well below them, leading Loken's squad to walk down dark, battered stairs into the basement of the fortress. It was ominously quiet this deep into the heart of the mountain. It had been some time since Loken heard the distant battle sounds that initially echoed throughout the fortress, leading him to believe that the fight was near its conclusion. His locator unit pinged again. Jubal wasn't far now. They reached an iron gate. It was shabbily constructed and showing signs of heavy oxidation. Loken pushed it open and could see Jubal in the distance. He was standing near the edge of a rock. As Loken got closer, he could see that the rock overlooked a ravine. He couldn't tell how far down it went, seeing only darkness below it. Directly in front of Jubal, meltwater ran down the cavern walls.
Jubal, is everything okay?
Jubal stood deathly still, staring straight ahead at the water glistening down the wall in front of him.
Everything is okay. It's more than okay, Captain. Look, it's perfect.
What am I looking at, Zeva?
The message. Read it for yourself, Captain. It's beautiful.
Where? I don't see any message.
It's right in front of you. Look at the words.
Jubal pointed at the wall in front of him, and Loken looked intently at the meltwater as it ran down the wall.
I must be missing something, brother. I don't see any words.
There. Right there. In the water, Captain. They appear, and then they're gone. But they come back.
the water. It whisks them away, but then it returns them. Look closer.
Brother, are you feeling all right?
It's all around us. I didn't see it either, at first. How could I have missed it? I hear it. I feel it. One name.
Xaver, I think it's time to go.
Jabal finally turned around and stared directly at Loken.
Listen to the water, Captain. Drip, drip, drip. Samos. That's the only name you'll hear.
Enough, Xaver.
The end and the death.
Sergeant Zellermeyer, detain him.
Sergeant Zellermeyer approached Jabal, his hand resting calmly on his bolter.
What are you doing? You're making a mistake. For the love of Terra, look! Samus is all around you!
I've heard enough. Where are your men? What happened to the rest of the Hellbore?
Samus is the man beside you. He's in your head, in your mind.
Zellermeyer was about to reach out and grab him when Jabal suddenly raised his arm up.
Samus stands before you!
Loken had just witnessed something unimaginable, and Astartes had just murdered another in cold blood.
Jabal, what have you done?
Jabal, I am Samus. Samus will gnaw upon your bones.
Loken tackled Jabal, knocking him to the ground as he tried physically restraining him. 3 of the Astartes that had come with Loken were now dead, and the 2 that remained rushed over to help him. Even with 3 Astartes attempting to hold Jabal down, he was still putting up a fight. Jabal punched one of them in the head, his fist striking the ceramite helmet as he rolled away and broke free.
Samus is here. He's all around you.
Loken charged at him again, and was able to rip the bolter out of his hand, tossing it over the rock's edge into the abyss. Jabal didn't miss a beat, and drew his sword. Loken followed suit, and he quickly brought it up to block a swinging attack from Jabal. Any semblance of blade skills that Jabal possessed had been abandoned as he wildly swung his blade. Their swords violently crashed against each other, until Jabal scored a strike by driving his blade into the shoulder plate of Loken's armor.
I am Samus.
Loken absorbed the pain of Jabal's blade driving into his shoulder, but knew that this was his chance to end this. With Jabal's blade firmly stuck in Loken's armor, he seized his opportunity.
There is no more Samus.
Loken's blade punctured through Jabal's armor and punched through his chest, his blade sticking through his back. Blood was running from Loken's mouth, and as he spat out a mouthful of it, he looked at the 2 Luna wolves who were staring at him in complete shock.
Get Vipers here, now.
Damn. And he didn't even turn. That's amazing.
We were given permission to go to the combat zone.
We were, but now I'm being told to wait.
Is everything okay?
I'm sure everything is fine, but we can't go now.
The Astartes were all around them now, returning to their Stormbirds. The Remembrancers were told that the Luna Wolves were victorious, but she saw no signs of celebration.
Do they normally look this lifeless after victory? I've known them to be rather enthusiastic after a successful mission.
This exercise was not terribly noteworthy, unfortunately. Some rebels hiding out in the mountains. I wouldn't expect a parade in the wake of their victory. I apologize if you were expecting more.
Keeler understood what Cinderman meant, but it didn't feel right. It felt like something was off. The look on Cinderman's face also led her to believe that he wasn't being entirely truthful. Keeler wasn't sure what to do now, and was beginning to question why she was down on the surface at all. She had been expecting an amazing opportunity to capture images that depicted the Astartes' victory. It now appeared that everything was over, and there were no indications that she would be able to leave the safe zone in the village. While she stood speaking with another Remembrancer, an Astartes approached and spoke to them.
I'm looking for Master Cinderman. I have been sent by Captain Loken. Do you happen to know where he is?
That would be me. I am Cinderman.
I'm going to need you to come with me.
Is everything okay?
Follow me, please. We can discuss further with Captain Loken.
The two scurried away, walking into the direction of the Whisperhead Mountains.
What do you think that was all about?
Who knows? We could find out, though.
And follow them? That seems kind of risky.
Isn't this why we came here? It wasn't that long ago that Cinderman told us they were almost ready for us. The others are leaving, and I haven't heard anything in ages now. No gunshots, no explosions. I think it's safe now. What's the worst that could happen?
Bradstreet shrugged, and they started walking in the direction of the Iterator. Cinderman couldn't believe his eyes. The destruction to the fortress, the amount of blood on the floors and walls, the sheer number of slain enemy corpses. Standing before a crowd and iterating about the importance of truth was one thing, but seeing the aftermath of its delivery was another thing altogether. Cinderman had been an iterator for decades, but this was the first time he had ever stepped foot onto a battlefield prior to it being cleaned up. He had never witnessed such brutality before.
We're almost there, sir. I understand if you need to shield your eyes.
Terror.
Cinderman was overwhelmed by what he was seeing. They walked down the steps towards the basement and through the rusted iron gate. Loken was surrounded by 10 Luna Wolves. He looked up and glanced over to his men.
I need to speak with Master Cinderman.
The Luna Wolves acknowledged their captain's words and filed out of the cavernous room.
Nero, don't wander too far.
I will be right outside.
Cinderman looked down and saw the lifeless body of Xavier Jabal on the ground.
I thought that I understood what you Astartes did, what you were capable of. But seeing it with my own eyes...
And now is not the time for this.
And I was told that this was a clean victory, that we hadn't even suffered a wound.
Cinderman's eyes were fixated on Jabal's corpse.
What happened to him?
That's the very question I would like to ask you.
I'm sorry?
This is Xavier Jubal. Was Xavier Jubal. I must report on what happened, but I can't comprehend it.
Tell me, Garviel. Tell me what happened.
What I'm about to tell you is completely confidential. It can never be spoken of.
You have my word. Please, Garviel, go on.
I lost 3 men today. The entirety of Hellbore Squad. Another 7 are missing.
How is this possible? The others I've spoken to, they didn't have but a scratch on their armor.
My men were murdered. Not by the enemy. They were murdered by Xavier Jubal.
Cinderman was dumbfounded. He shook his head, closing his eyes and rubbing his face with his hands.
Can you please repeat what you just said to me? Because what you just said, you are inferring that...
I infer nothing. I saw it with my own eyes. He killed them, all 3 of them, right in front of me.
It's possible, Garviel, that this was a mistake. In the heat of battle, that he mistook them for enemies.
No, there were no enemies. It was only Xavier in this room. He summoned me, said he needed to show me something, and then he fired upon his brothers at point-blank range. This was no accident. He was possessed. He was no longer Xavier Jubal.
Garviel, I need you to calm down. I am trying to understand this just like you are, but we will not stoop to such levels as to use spiritual words.
Do you know what he said to me? He said he wasn't Jubal. He said, I am Samus.
Cinderman felt his stomach drop, and his face turned white.
Samus.
Familiar with the name, are you?
Of course I am, Garviel. Scare tactics. You said it yourself.
Iterator, I hold a great deal of respect for you. I'm going to ask you this one time, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Are spirits real?
No. I can tell you unequivocally, spirits do not exist.
This shit is getting wild real quick. My god. I love the way they are putting so much gravitas into each of these scenes. This is great. Oh god. I'm trying really hard not to just get lost in the story being told, because it's getting really good really quickly. But this is peak cinema. I wish this was fucking cinema. I hope that Amazon can achieve something nearly on the same level of writing quality as this. God damn it, Bezos. But, oh boy.
Could they exist?
No. Without question, no. Absolutely not.
I studied the archives, Kyrell. I read through the history of the world. These mountains, the Whisperheads. There were writings of a demon that existed here. One that was held prisoner in these very mountains. The mountains where you and I are standing right now. That demon's name was Samus.
I've studied the same archives. I read the same myths as you. Strange, unusual events do happen, but there is always a rational explanation. Our time amongst the stars has proven it. This is a tragedy, some terrible blunder, but I assure you that we will find a rational explanation.
I'm really not sure about that, Kyrell. And Astartes starts referring to himself as an ancient demon, tells me that he is the end and the death, and then he draws a weapon and kills 3 of his brothers, and you want to tell me that there's a rational explanation? I need to hear what that is.
Well, it seems your mind is made up then, isn't it? If you would listen to me, I can explain. I can rationalize this for you.
Loken said nothing in response, and Cinderman knelt down in front of Jabal's helmetless body, looking closely at it. Patterns of deformations and discolored moles were visible on his skin. The flesh on his neck and face had shriveled. It looked as if he had been dead for years.
See these? These impurities all over his face?
I do.
What I see is evidence of a disease, a virus that Xavier could have contracted.
Astartes cannot contract such viruses. We're too resilient.
Astartes are not resistant to everything. It is certainly not impossible for an Astartes to be infected with a terrible disease.
But why an Astartes, and not any of the Imperial soldiers? And why only him?
I don't see it out of the realm of possibility that his gene code was flawed.
He was acting as if he was possessed, as if he wasn't in control of his own body.
And maybe he wasn't, but that doesn't mean he was possessed. If a plague was developing inside of him and his brain was compromised by this virus, he could have simply been repeating words he had been hearing. The enemy has been flooding the Vox frequencies relentlessly with this Samus nonsense. It's feasible that Xavier was sick, and that was the last thing he heard before he was too far gone.
God, wouldn't that be great if that was the actual truth? But we all know that is not the fucking truth. Oh man, if only.
Loken exhaled deeply, looking relieved as he turned his head towards Cinderman.
Iterator, I'm relieved that I asked you to come here. This does make sense.
This is awful. A true catastrophe. But demons, spirits, they had nothing to do with it. May I suggest that we quarantine this area immediately and have a Medicaid unit study this at once?
He looked at the cold, dead corpse of Jabal. His thoughts turned to sadness at how an unexplained disease could have caused such a terrible mishap. But before Cinderman could formulate another thought, Jabal's yellow, bloodshot eyes opened wide, and he lifted his head off the rock's surface.
Samus is here.
This is horrible.
It's worse than I ever could have imagined.
The Remembrancers had so badly wanted to experience this, to see the reality of a war zone instead of a safe, curated tour that withheld what war actually looked like. Now, they would have rather not come at all. Witnessing it firsthand was horrific. The stench was overpowering, and laying eyes on the outcome of what had happened in this fortress was so vile that Keeler had barely captured any images at all.
I don't know if I can do this. I couldn't imagine even looking at images of this. It would feel indecent.
We're not doing this for us. We're here for everyone who isn't here to see it themselves.
I know, but I'm not sure anyone should see this.
Despite Bradstreet's reluctance, they both carried on. She refused to take pics of any of the slumped-over bodies, but she documented everything else. The blood on the walls, the mounds of spent ammunition on the ground, the evidence of war. Somewhere along the way, they had lost track of where they were going, and they were now walking down multiple sets of stairs that the insurgents had constructed. The deeper they descended into the heart of the mountain, the more weary the two of them began to feel. A group of Imperial soldiers walked by them carrying body bags of fallen enemies. The soldiers gave them a sideways glance as they passed, but they didn't say anything.
I think we should turn around, Euphrates. If we get caught here, we could get kicked off the crusade.
Keeler wasn't saying it, but she felt just as uncomfortable as Bradstreet.
Maybe you're right, but I don't even know how to get back. We've walked for so long in here.
We'll just follow those soldiers.
Okay, let's go. What was that?
Jabal stood up, and Cinnamon screamed louder than he ever had in his life. Loken lunged at him, but Jabal punched him in the chest and knocked him to the ground. Loken and Cinnamon looked on in horror as Jabal's armor began to crack. He was changing before their very eyes, morphing into some sort of monstrous creature. As his body expanded, his armor fell to the ground, revealing flesh that had changed colors and turned sickly blue. His face had been distorted and now barely resembled that of Xavier Jabal. Vipus heard the commotion and ran into the chamber, confused in alarm as to what monstrosity was standing in front of him. Loken fired a bolt round into the horrifying beast, striking it in the shoulder. The round tore into his arm and made a sickening noise as it exploded. But the thing that Jabal had become shrugged the shot off and continued stomping forward. Vipus stood in the doorway and tried to steady his bolt pistol's aim, but the beast grabbed Cinderman with both arms and violently threw him into Vipus. They were both writhing on the ground in pain, and they watched in complete horror as Jabal marched through the entry gate and into the corridor outside of the chamber.
What in the name of terror?
Bradstreet tried to scream, but couldn't muster a sound. He tried to turn and run, but lost his balance and fell backwards. The colossal being that was running towards them didn't appear real, its physical form twisting and blurring with light. Keeler was holding her picture before she had heard the scream, and she never let go of it, even as the horrific thing was now only meters away. Out of pure instinct, she snapped pics of the disgusting, surreal creature. She wanted to run, but she couldn't move. Unable to take her eyes off of what was once Jabal, she was utterly immobilized. Flashes of yellow light surrounded him as he moved, making his motions look like a glitching pick feed that was sped up too fast. She watched it reach out and lift Bradstreet into the air. The horrid creature raised his arms up and smashed Bradstreet into the cavernous ceiling, shattering his bones and exploding his body into pieces. There was nothing more Keeler could do. This was the end, and she had accepted it. Before she surrendered to her imminent death, she fell to her knees and made the sign of the Aquila. With tears running down her face, she closed her eyes and waited for the darkness to consume her.
Bro, this is getting good. This is getting so good. Oh my god.
Are you absolutely sure?
Yes, Ezekiel. I'm sure.
This is important, Garville. There cannot be even the tiniest scrap of doubt.
I killed it, there is no doubt. It took over 100 rounds from Vipers and I, firing on full auto. It collapsed and burst into pieces. Then we scorched the remains with flamers. There was nothing left.
Who knows about this?
Myself, Cinderman, Nero, and a Remembrancer, Euphrates Keeler.
And no one else saw it? You're certain?
There were others who saw it, but they're dead now.
What did you say about this?
I said nothing, Ezekiel. I didn't know what to say. I still don't.
Following the incident with Jabal, Abaddon came to meet with Loken privately in the village of Kashiri. The two of them were alone in a longhouse, and Abaddon grabbed a chair and pulled it over so he could sit next to Loken.
Garville, I want you to know how proud I am of you. You handled this exceptionally well. But I need to know, before Jubal turned into whatever it was that he became, who else knew of the Lunar Wolves being murdered?
More of my men. 2 of them saw it happen, and there were others that I spoke to about it. I sought their advice.
Okay, we can keep this under control. Get me their names. I will handle them. This terrible thing that happened, it must remain confidential. The official word will be that of a successful strike where we stood victorious. We eliminated the insurgents, but suffered losses in 2 squads. In spite of these losses, 6319 is fully compliant. Do you trust the Iterator? He can never speak of this.
I trust him. He won't say a word.
And what about the Remembrancer?
Keeler, I don't know her. She's still in shock. She didn't speak much. That thing was about to tear her to shreds before we killed it. She doesn't know what attacked her. She didn't see Jubal change. I told her it was a wild beast.
This is good news. I'll speak with her myself. I'll mention this wild beast and explain that this must not be spoken of. The other Remembrancers cannot find out about this.
How do we explain the death of the other Remembrancer?
That can be explained easily. He didn't utilize his rebreather correctly and fell sick from the altitude. Or we can claim an accident with the lander ship upon deployment. I'll take care of that.
Tell me, Ezekiel, am I expected to forget that this ever happened? Because I refuse to do that.
No one is expecting you to forget what happened, but this is a military matter, and disclosing it publicly is a security risk. And think of the damage it would do to morale.
A door opened behind them, and someone entered the longhouse. Loken had only briefly spoken with Vipus after they had burned the remains of Jabal, and he was expecting him to join the conversation with Abaddon. But he was caught by surprise when he heard the voice behind him speak.
Ezekiel, I'd like to speak with Garvio alone.
Loken immediately jumped to his feet to salute his war master, but Horus motioned with his hand to sit down. Abaddon left the room, and Horus took his place in the chair beside Loken.
You're troubled, Garvio. I see it on your face.
I am, Lord.
I want you to let go of these troubles.
I want to, sir, but I haven't been able to. I have failed you, and I feel great shame.
You failed me? How so?
Lunar Wolves died. A Remembrancer, too. Even worse, they died at the hands of one of our own.
Garvio, you swore an oath of moment before you came here, did you not?
I did, Lord.
Did you stay true to your oath? Did you bring death to the insurgents of this world, and bring it to compliance?
Yes, I did.
When Jubal turned and transformed into some horrific monster, did you run? Did you cower in fear? Or did you stand up to it, putting your life on the line to fight for your legion?
I did not cower, Lord. I fought for my brothers.
And therefore, you did not fail me. You did not fail anyone. So you must rid yourself of shame and worry.
Horus slid back in his chair, then stood up and slowly walked to the other side of the room.
I spoke with Kirill Sinderman. He's feeling just as troubled as you, Garvio.
I can fucking imagine. He was a normal-ass dude among fucking giant behemoth of men, and even they could not defeat the thing immediately that just turned into... one of them turned into a fucking demon, and they could not comprehend what was happening, and nor could they easily as quell the damn thing that Jabal turned into. I mean, how do you rationalize that? You can't, because it doesn't make any fucking sense. And even if you do try to find the sense in it, and even if you do somehow manage to find sense in it, the reality is just as fucking terrifying.
He told me what he saw. He spoke of seeing things that I have never heard an iterator speak of before. Spirits, demons. He was concerned about what he saw, and that you shared those concerns.
He told me it was a sickness, a virus of some sort, and I thought that to be true. But then, he turned into something else. He wasn't Jubal anymore. I believe that what I saw was a demon.
You saw no such thing. I can tell you exactly what you saw.
Lord?
What I'm about to tell you is not known by many. I know of it, and the Emperor does too. It is a secret, and you must never share it.
I understand, Lord.
What you saw was the warp.
The warp?
I've seen what the warp has done in its dark dimensions. You have as well.
The War Master. I've seen the warp have terrible effects before, but not on an Astartes.
What that tells me is that you do not understand the full mechanism of the warp.
I do not, Lord.
Nor do I. Nor does anyone. Not even the Emperor, beloved by all. The warp is so vital to us, Garviel. To communicate and to travel the stars. The warp is powerful. More powerful than we can even understand. Its powers are not good or evil, but elemental.
Horus had been pacing back and forth as he spoke, and he returned to his seat next to Loken.
Is that going through?
Word you used, demon.
No, okay.
It implies sorcery. It implies gods. These are words that we no longer use. We don't like what they represent, but they are only words. What you saw today. Pick your word, Garviel. Spirit, demon, whatever you please, but understand the meaning of the word.
As in, the warp?
That's right. Think of the inhuman decay that we have faced off against. Orcs, Eldar, Gaikon. We use the word xenos or alien, but they are not organic beings.
I have never heard of a Gaikon before. That one's new to me, but I'll let that one slide.
The way they influence our reality seems supernatural. The galaxy is inconceivably vast, and there are plenty of strange, non-human creatures that oppose us. But that doesn't mean that they're evil. There are no gods, no spirits, no higher powers with evil intent. There are simply things that were created for no other reason than to destroy.
Lord, I've seen psykers become corrupted while traveling through the warp, but I've never seen an Astartes change like that. I've never seen anything even resembling what I saw today, and on the surface of a world, no less.
Garviel, it does happen.
Loken said nothing, but his face wore a look of dismay.
I'm sure you will find this hard to believe. We don't openly speak of it, but it has happened. The warp can infiltrate anyone or anything if it desires. Men have found ways of controlling the warp before, and the insurgents on this planet have done the same. It is unfortunate that Jubal had to fall victim to their warp manipulations.
But out of anyone, why Jubal?
It seems to me that he would have been more vulnerable than anyone. He felt passed over, and because of this he was upset. He allowed his emotions to get the best of him, and his guard was down. Because of this, he was weak. The powers of the warp exploit weakness. Once they sense it, they attack it.
I read about the history of the mountains. He was referring to himself as Samus.
Ah, Samus. The demon that was held prisoner in the Whisperheads. I read the same thing. A myth, of course. The Whisperheads are closer to the warp than you realize, Garviel.
I was not aware, Lord.
Ingmei Singh, the mistress of astropaths, informed me of something that you may find interesting. Shortly after 10th Company disembarked, this very region experienced a substantial warp spike. This is not a loose theory or hypothesis, it is hard data. I don't doubt for a moment that the people of this world believe that they were harnessing magic, but it is warp energy.
Why would this have been kept from us, Lord? Why have we not been informed about the warp?
Because the warp is something that we barely understand ourselves. Do you know why the Emperor chose me to be the War Master?
Because of your strength and intelligence, Lord. You are War Master because of your ability to lead and influence.
No. The truth is more simple. I am War Master because the Emperor is busy. He has returned to Terra because he is working on something of utmost importance. After we were victorious on Ulanor, he told me that he could now leave the crusade to the Primarchs.
What is it that he is working on?
He didn't tell anyone, not even me. But I have my theories. The Imperium would not be here if not for the warp, and yet we know almost nothing about it. I am of the belief that the Emperor is attempting to change this. I believe that he is attempting to learn it, to master its powers. He has come to the realization that without fully understanding the powers of the warp, the Imperium will collapse.
What if he can't master the warp?
No, there's even something more heinous going on here. He knows a lot about the warp. He just refuses to actually disclose anything about it. And there's a lot of theories to it. There's one specific one that people look to that's been mentioned before by the Emperor himself, that he doesn't want to mention anything to his Primarchs, specifically because he doesn't believe that it's necessary to tell them, or anyone for that matter. And the reason for this is because apparently, he believes that if the Chaos Gods were to then invade the consciousness of man, they would gain even more power and presence than they already have. And so his idea, his ultimate strategy was that if he could lessen the effect that the Chaos Gods have in the conscious minds of humanity, he could essentially lessen their hold and grip over humanity as well as their power and influence over them. It's an interesting idea in theory, but in practice, of course, it leaves a lot to be desired, because it's not like you can truly erase the existence of other beings out of people's consciousness or even mind, especially since the warp intrudes upon the mind. And so it's very difficult to even assert that you could do something like this. The only reason why it hasn't gone as bad until the heresy, it's because it's all mostly just isolated incidences that could easily be swept under the rug. But when Horus fell victim to chaos, and all due to the acts of Logar and the Word Bearers, as well as even Erebus, especially fucking Erebus. There's been, you know, like, the influence of chaos just, it gained a much bigger stronghold in one of the prime, you know, in a Primarch, for God's sake. So, you know, like, and since Horus fell to chaos, you know, he became a champion of chaos. And so the reason for everything that will transpire is all because of the machinations of not just the Word Bearers, but also to the design of the Chaos Gods themselves, as they continuously war amongst themselves and even with the Emperor of mankind for supremacy over the mortal realm. And that's a different story for another time. I don't want to drag on this too hard because it's already 8 hours in.
He can.
And what if we can't carry the crusade without him, and we fail?
We won't.
Loken sat alone in his arming chamber on the Vengeful Spirit. It was usually quiet here, but this time it was different. The weight of the silence was unsettling. Losing a brother in battle was always a tragedy, but the magnitude of what had occurred on 6319 loomed relentlessly in Loken's mind, straining at his every thought.
Captain Loken, may I come in?
The sound of Mercedes' voice snapped Loken out of a momentary daze, and he looked up at her as he spoke.
Yes, come in.
Captain, I hope that I'm not interrupting anything.
You're not?
I wanted to apologize to you.
Apologize? What for?
You vouched for me, Captain. You put my name forward as a candidate to go to the surface and document what happens on the battlefield. It was an opportunity that I could never thank you enough for. But I am ashamed that I squandered it. Something happened to one of my friends, and because of that, I didn't make it.
Remembrance, sir, it is extremely fortuitous that you didn't make it.
Loken turned his head away from Mercedy and began polishing his armor once again.
Captain, there was another reason I came to speak to you. You see, I mentioned that something happened to my friend, Ignace Carcassy. Perhaps you know him?
I don't.
Well, he made a mistake. He did something rather foolish, and he's now found himself in a bit of trouble. I'm reluctant to ask for your help, but you are in a position of great influence, and I believe you could help him.
Go on.
Thank you for being willing to listen to me. It means a great deal to me, but I feel silly, Captain. I am a remembrancer. Before I ask anything of you...
Everything is okay. It's perfect, 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 perfect.
There are no gods.
Sabbath is here.
Captain Loken, before I ask anything of you, I should be remembering your victorious campaign. Do you want to tell me about what happened on the surface?
No, I don't.
Man, what a way to end that. You hear that, folks? Subscribe. If you like this stuff, go to Warrior Tears channel and subscribe to this channel. Like the video. Leave a comment, as a matter of fact, right down here where he can find it. This has been truly a masterful bit of storytelling. And if not just on behalf of the original author who penned this thing and made it into what it is, but also just by the fact that it was portrayed phenomenally by Warrior Tier and a lot of the people who have helped to make this thing possible. I would be very remiss if I didn't tell you to go show your support. Go like the video, go subscribe to it, share it to your friends even. Because, I mean, this is a pretty good story, all things considering. I mean, like, even if they're not exactly Warhammer fans, you know, I think anyone could appreciate the level of writing that is on display here. So, with all of that said, I need to get going. And I am hungry as hell. And I'm going to go ahead and just leave you all with that. So, once again, thank you all so much for watching and for being here. I may end up making this into its own separate video part by itself because, you know, that way it's not as, you know, it's not mixed in with like the Doom game that I was playing just a moments earlier. And, you know, that way it also has the ability to have its own breath of life on the channel. I don't know. But I cannot stress it enough. Please go subscribe to Warrior Tier. Go leave a comment. Go like his content. I don't even care if you do that for my video. Just go support him. He absolutely deserves it. This is just phenomenal. And I can't wait to see the part 2 of it. And if you like this video, if you want me to see the next part of Horus Rising, please, by all means, leave a comment, subscribe, leave a like if you wish, or even just a like. I don't mind. You know, like, if it gets enough traction and if a lot of people want to see it, I will totally make another reaction of this. And even if you don't, I may just end up doing it just for the fuck of it because it's so good. So yeah, I'm leaving it there. I've said enough of that. That all that needs to be said. Thank you again, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.